Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Not Just Politics podcast. This is a special episode hosted by me, Donald J. Trump, your favorite president ever, definitely more than Lincoln, possibly more than Washington. This is a Halloween special. I'm here hosting the show, the greatest podcast in the world. We're here at Liberal Point Park. They like pronouns at Point Park, so these are my pronouns. My pronouns are your president, because I am. Joe Biden stole the last election from me, stole it. And now I'm being indicted every 3 days, but we're okay with it, right, boys? We're okay with it. I hope you enjoy this episode, and thank you for watching. I don't have to break character. I just can't.
There's no way you stay in character.
How's it going, boys? How's everyone doing? Cade, we haven't seen you in quite some time. How you been doing? How was your trip to Nashville, Tennessee? Great city.
It was exhausting.
Yeah, a lot of drinking. I don't drink. Do you drink a lot?
If I'm around you, I might have to.
Gavin's here as an astronaut. You know, I was the one that started the Space Force. Never forget that. And they made fun of me, but now you're there. He's a member of the Space Force.
He has NASA.
No, it's the Space Force. I took over NASA.
That's something Trump would do. Just call NASA the Space Force.
That's what I did, and I did.
It.
I renamed it the Space Force. Putin's going to be in space. The next war is going to be in space. China's going to be there, so we've got to be ready. We need a Space Force.
I can't take that seriously. Yeah. Partially because that sounds like something he would say. Like,
I did say it. You didn't know this? I created the Space Force. And the COVID vaccine. I started the COVID vaccine, and then I said it wasn't good after Joe Biden got elected. I have to break character,
I don't even know how. I just don't know how I'm going to respond to
This
that.
conversation's going to go nowhere if I don't break character. Maybe I'll just do bursts of Trump. Maybe Trump will come out every once in a while in a conversation.
I'm just like, what do I even say to you?
I don't know.
Trashing vaccines in character as Trump.
I don't know. I was just making up stuff. I was just freestyling. That's all I was doing. I'm roasting right now. It is so hot in here. They need an air conditioner in this studio. Yeah, I'm dying.
They're not?
No, there's no air conditioner. I mean, that one claims to be an air conditioner, but
That's what I thought.
But it's fake news. It's big air conditioning.
It's literally just like an oven in here. Like
Yeah, no, it's
beams in,
Yeah.
cooks.
It's really hot in here.
I mean, it's still not as bad as West Penn during the winter. They crank that up to like 80 degrees during the winter.
Crazy.
You seen that clip where Trump's like, you seen that the media's gonna say Trump didn't look so well. He looked wet. He didn't look too good. It's 94 degrees in this room. And then the next day, MSNBC was like, do you think he's well? He doesn't look too good. He looks sick.
I've not.
And it was
seen
apparently
any
like
of that.
94, but he like called it. That's me right now. I'm just dying. I'm roasting.
You are going to have like the Rudy Giuliani drip on your face.
Yeah, I am. I don't know what Trump would say about Rudy Giuliani. What would he say? I don't know.
Does he still like him? I lose track.
I don't know if he's still his lawyer or not.
I haven't kept track
I
of.
don't think he legally can be.
I haven't kept track of who he doesn't.
I thought
Crooked Rudy.
they tried to disbar him in New York.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I haven't
I
followed
don't
any
keep
of
up
it.
with
All I know is that trial, my indictment trial looks like an episode of The Office. Have you seen this? The cameras, they're framing it like it's an episode of The Office. Great show.
That clip was so good.
It was.
I
so
assume
good.
you're.
It was. It was so good. That clip where he's just sitting there, like just kind of like, just chilling in the courtroom.
That
Like,
judge
zoom
looks
in.
like he's never presided over a high-profile case.
Yeah, the zoom in on the judge was like
It was
like-
fire.
yeah, and the judge knew he was like being zoomed in on. He was like waving to the camera. Like,
I thought he gave a little shrug the way I remember it.
He just goes. Yeah. I mean, that's incredible, though. No, I haven't kept up with any of it. It's too much. I like being in character. He's funny.
It's hard to keep track of who takes a plea deal at this point because everyone's at the.
Everyone's taking a plea deal.
Well,
Everyone's-
Meadows has immunity. He didn't even have to plead guilty. They gave his chief of staff immunity.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Who even knows, man?
Well, I mean, who's above his chief of staff other than him? For his chief of staff to get immunity, he basically.
I mean, Mike Pence is the only one that would probably be higher
But
than that.
Mike Pence wasn't present for the events on January 6th, so it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like he has knowledge that would.
No,
Like
and he destroyed his political career with that whole, like, when he was talking with Tucker Carlson, and Tucker Carlson was like, why are you sending all the money to Ukraine whenever, like, you go to any of our cities and they're rotting? Like, they're, like, all these problems are getting worse. And Mike Pence goes, oh, well, that's not my concern. Done.
That was his answer.
Yes, you didn't see that? Done.
No, I didn't catch
Finished.
that. I mean,
His crooked Mike Pence's career's over, this guy.
I
Could
don't.
have overturned the votes in the election. I told him he could have done it.
I think that's actually where his political career ended, because it ended with mainstream Republicans by being Trump's vice president, and it ended with Trump Republicans by him not
Yeah.
siding with Trump.
Well, he had, like, some opportunity to come back a little bit, and then he made that one statement and just wrecked his whole career, I think. I think he's done.
Yeah, I don't.
He won't be my vice president. My vice president will be Candace Owens. It's time for to have a woman of color vice president.
Is I can just imagine him saying that with Kamala Harris as vice president actively. Has he mentioned Candace Owens being his running?
I mean, he went on her show on the Daily Wire, and she was like,
She's
hey,
on
what
the
about
Daily Wire now?
Candace Owens?
Yeah,
Been on the Daily Wire for like
wasn't
a year.
she Fox News?
No, she was never with Fox News.
Who was she with?
Who are
before
you?
the Daily Wire?
Turning Point USA.
Am I mixing up who Candace Owens is?
No, she's just Candace Owens. She's
I could have sworn
Conservative
she was Fox
Talking
News.
Point. Yeah, I mean,
I get them mixed up. Like
Well,
Fox News.
no.
Yeah.
Candace Owens was never with Fox News.
Damn.
Fox News is so lame. Like, I don't even get why anyone would want. I don't even get why conservatives would want to go to it. Genuinely, the
Probably
Daily Wire
because
seems.
of its like elderly audience.
Yeah, that's Candace Owens.
No, I know who Candace Owens is. I just could
Yeah.
have sworn. Was she a frequent Fox News guest? I just associated with her with Fox News.
Well, that's probably not accurate. I don't think so. I don't think she. I mean, she's maybe gone on like once or twice, maybe, but I don't think she's like a frequent.
Like I don't watch Fox News, so I probably saw
course.
like 2 clips with her as a guest,
and
and
like,
just
that's the whole
associated.
thing. Yeah. No, Candace didn't go on Fox News. I went on Fox News. I roasted Elon on Fox News.
Does he go on Fox News still?
No, I don't think so.
I thought
No.
he's mad at
No,
them.
no, he is. He is. They're fake news now. Everything's fake news. The whole thing is like the whole system's eating itself alive.
My favorite thing is when Fox News uses the term mainstream media as like a negative, and I'm like, I forget if they're
are.
the most viewed or second most viewed
They're the
news
I think
station
they have
in
the
America.
most, don't
They
they?
are the mainstream.
Well, Tucker had the most views out of anyone before he left, but I still think Fox News brings in. But he was a lot of their viewership, wasn't he? I talked to Tucker before the primary, before the debate. I went to do Tucker's show on X.
Oh, that's right.
yeah, I don't know how many views like Hannity gets.
I don't know either, but that
They
thing
have
that
some other like bigger ones. What's that woman's name that usually has the show in like the afternoon?
Megan Kelly. No,
No,
Megan.
like
No,
the
she's
blonde-
not with
the blonde.
Jesse
one.
Waters.
They're
is
all
their
blonde.
new
That is true. It is Fox News.
the blonde one. No. Megan Kelly was blonde, but she's not there anymore. I don't know. They all just kind of look the same.
Ingram, I think.
Oh yeah, Lauren Ingram does. Yeah.
Because Jesse Waters is their new Tucker Carlson. I think he took the time.
No, that's terrible.
But he's not good.
What did he say? What did he say right when the Trump mugshot dropped? He was like, "I'm saying this with an untainted record of heterosexuality. He looks good. He looks hard. He looks strong." It's like
I don't think you need
dude,
to preface
I don't
that.
think you need to preface that. Well, on Fox News, maybe
He
you
looks
do.
good. Like
He looks good. He looks hard. He looks ready to go. He looks mean. It was like one of my favorite moments. I was dying laughing when they dropped that clip.
I just want to. Can anyone actually honestly say Trump looks good? Like that would be like me as a Democrat saying Joe
No.
Biden looks good. Like I don't think he looks good, and I'm
No.
I'm willing to admit that. Like
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think I don't know what that thought process is like. I think he's just the savior to some of these people. Like he is. That's what he is. That's what I am to these people. I go in there, I drain the swamp.
I just wish we could just get honest about it. Like,
But then, I mean, I'm not meaning to do like a whataboutism thing, but also like the Democrats have done plenty of that with Biden.
oh no,
Like,
I agree. They did it
complete-
with who's the lady who died in office in
Dianne
California?
Feinstein.
Yeah, they like it's constantly we're pretending these people are
Or
okay.
yeah, like they're ready to go and do the job and they're not.
Like
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for like both Trump and Joe Biden would possibly do this. Like just an ad where they're fake boxing.
Oh my God, I would love to see a boxing. I would listen. Joe Biden said he would take me behind the shed and beat me up. Let me tell you something. Not true. Wrong. You know, it's like someone telling you, like, you know, what was the Shane Gillis bit? He was like, "We witnessed the GOAT of debates. Trump's undefeated, and he never said a fact."
So, like Trump and Joe Biden fight. I think Joe Biden would hit harder. I'd like to think. I think.
No way. Right now, in this
Right
current
now.
state?
I
No
think.
way.
Do we think Trump has ever done anything that would develop muscle mass?
I mean, no, but he used to go WWE. He got Stone Cold Stunnered in like the 90s or whatever, I think.
I mean, so like
no, neither one of them have any muscle, but it's like
I think
Biden can't pick up the phone to call Trump to tell him to get in the ring. I don't think he can even pick up the phone anymore.
Well, Mike Tyson mentally isn't there either. He's one of the best. You don't need the mental. Here's the because neither of them are going to be skilled boxers.
No, of course not. It's going to suck. They're going to like miss every punch.
Well,
They're going
like-
to get tired after one round.
I watched a Bellator fight one time. I think it was Ken Shamrock against Kimbo Slice, and they were both in their 50s
No
at
clue
the time.
who either one of those people are.
So Ken Shamrock, I want to say he was primarily jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
Kimbo Slice, like just imagine super muscular black guy like Mr. T.
Okay.
Like that kind
and
of
they
like
fought,
just super muscular.
and they were like in their 50s and they fought.
yeah.
How'd that go?
Like they were gassed after like 30 seconds. I want to say that was the fight. I won't just watch a little bit of Bellator here.
I don't even know if Joe Biden could step in the ring.
No, I'm mixing that up. Ken Shamrock fought Hoist Gracie. Kimbo Slice fought somebody else. But like
Yeah.
Bellator would just have these like 50-some-year-old.
Is Bellator like that's different than the UFC, or is that
It's like the XFL to the UFC. If we want to go,
UFC's
XFL,
better.
NFL.
Dana White's a great guy.
Oh, fuck,
I
hate
helped
Dana
start
White.
the UFC. I helped start it. He's a great friend of mine. Those guys take more hits than anybody. You can't even imagine. The toughest athletes alive.
Dana White might be the most coked up person alive. Right
I mean,
now.
that's probably yeah. And he just kind of like doesn't pay fight. I don't know. I'm not gonna say I don't know anything about that world. I don't know.
It's insurance that's primarily the problem. I mean, they're not all paid equally. Like, well, when you think about them putting their body on the, like, if I sign a UFC contract, you've got to think if I'm bad, I'm getting 4 fights out of it, maybe. And
Sure.
I'm going to have a concussion after it.
Yeah, and you better make enough money to be set for a while after that.
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to be paid to put your body on the line?
I don't know, but I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't do it.
I'd
I
do it if I
wouldn't
knew
fight.
I was good.
Fight. I went on the Nelk Boys podcast and I said one of you guys should get in the UFC. You guys should fight. You guys are tough guys. Logan Paul's in my DMs right now, trying to get a UFC fight.
You know,
He's a
that
real tough guy, Logan Paul.
that
No,
prospect
we
of
will
Logan.
not sponsor you, Prime.
No, and listen, real talk though. I know Logan Paul's watching this. Your drink sucks. You're going through lawsuits and stuff, you goober. I
Okay.
know he's watching this right now.
So, like, the caffeine-related lawsuits are super dumb.
Isn't there something else too? Like, isn't there some other chemical that they're like not supposed to have in there or something like that?
I think they did have more of a chemical than they were really supposed to have in the, but I forget if that was in the U.S. or somewhere stricter.
Okay.
And I think that they're making a version for like or they have a version of the UK that follows their stricter laws. Our food
Yeah.
safety standards are like the lowest.
They're the
in
greatest
developed
ever in the world, Cade. We have the greatest country ever. Our food regulations are fine.
People were mad because they wanted to ban some ingredient that's in Skittles, and they thought that meant banning Skittles, but it just meant we'd get the version.
Wasn't it like red dye 40 or something?
It
Aren't they
was-
like cracking down on one of the red dyes now?
I don't know that.
I thought they were.
What's
doing
wrong
that.
with the red dyes? The only thing I know for sure is people think one of them makes autism worse.
No, I think there's one that I'm not a medical. I am a medical expert.
Red 40.
Red 40. There's something up with red 40 that's like, maybe you could look this up, Gavin, quickly. There's some like negative health. I don't know. It's one of the red dyes they're like trying to ban because it has like adverse health effects, I think.
What kind of man children does the U.S. have that we need our food dyed to be happy eating it?
I mean, it's just, listen, the red Skittles pretty great, man.
I don't.
Twizzlers. There's a lot of good red foods, man. Apples, those aren't dyed, though.
The only thing I'll argue in favor of food dye is it takes away the shot. Imagine if you just open a bag of Skittles and they're all white,
No,
and you don't know what
did that.
flavor you're getting.
They did that. Did you not see this?
No.
They did this, and I swear to God this is true. I swear to God. I walked through Target one day. I saw... Should I do this in the Trump voice? I think I should. I was walking through Target the other day. This was a while ago. I saw a bag of Skittles. Skittles are usually rainbow. Roy G. Biv. That's what Skittles look like. There's not a blue Skittle, oddly enough, but that's fine. But I walked through and I saw a pack of all white Skittles. I said, that's odd. Why would there be all white Skittles? I turned over the bag and it was a Pride bag. A Pride bag of Skittles. I swear to God this is true.
Wait, the Pride Skittles are all white?
They're all white because the back of the bag said, and I quote, "We want everyone to experience their own rainbow. We want their own, show your own rainbow." A white pack of Skittles. So Skittles whitewashed their product so that everyone could show their own, like,
they were the most generic, like just directly Pride product where they could like do nothing.
Literally,
and they were already rainbow.
Just put the flag, put some logo on the package, and you're done.
Like Skittles as a product is
Skittles is woke. They're woke. They went woke. They did the white Skittles for Pride Month.
They're by design the brand that I would say has to do the least pandering to be like
you
to
have
make a Pride version of their product, because really that's all any of them are doing. They're pandering to an audience.
It's just virtue signaling. That's all it really is.
I don't think you can even call it virtue signaling. If we look at most of these corporations, Chick-fil-A did a Pride logo on their social media.
It's virtue signaling because they clearly don't care. They're just doing it for business reasons. They're doing it to get social clout. They're doing it. They're not doing it because they actually care. They're corporations.
The only company I've seen that actually has actions that back their beliefs is Ben and Jerry's, and I love Ben and Jerry's social media.
No, I mean, like, seriously, it is ridiculous, though, in the month of June that Mercedes-Benz is like, oh, let's put the Pride flag behind our logo. But then in Mercedes-Benz, like the Mercedes-Benz branch over in the Middle East, nothing. They don't put it behind their logo. You want to know why? Because those people get thrown off buildings in the Middle East.
It's not popular elsewhere. It's just like if you saw Jon Stewart wanted to talk about China and Apple wouldn't let him.
Really?
Yeah. Oh,
really?
Jon Stewart's ending his show on Apple because Apple won't let him talk about AI or China.
Whoa.
And they basically came to the mutual agreement.
Jon Stewart, come to Truth Social. Do your new show on Truth Social. It'll be great.
That basically this would create creative problems. Like his show is tackling things that Apple, for relations with China reasons, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, you probably can't talk about the stuff that China's doing on an Apple thing when they produce all the phones over there.
And AI, because we all damn well know Apple's going to want to get into AI.
Yeah. I mean, that part's a little bit. I mean, he should just probably go do his own thing. Is he not big enough that he could go start his own?
Oh no,
YouTube
he's
show?
definitely big enough.
He's big enough that tomorrow he could go start his own YouTube show completely on his own, and he'd be fine.
I think he would be my number one, like, most frequently viewed news.
Exactly.
If he did something on his own.
If he just went, like, I don't get why all these people. Why are you staying with a network now? Like, go do it on your own. Especially if you're Jon Stewart and you have that big of a following. Go do it on your own.
The networks still provide funding and remove risk that you're taking on you.
Risk you're taking on yourself?
Well, because paying for the cameras, paying for the production. You
Oh,
can
come
get a
on.
lot more production value without taking on any financial risk if you're with a network. Not that that's an excuse. Like, he has the
That shouldn't be a
money,
problem for him. Like, he definitely has the money.
but how often, like, even like rich ass people don't like taking risks with their money. Like, that's
I
just
mean,
the truth.
Okay, then go to fucking, who's he gonna go to? Fucking, no matter who he goes to, there's gonna be some corporation where he can't talk about something.
There's not a
because-
television network left wing enough to have Jon Stewart be on it.
Probably, unless he went over like MSNBC, and then I'd throw myself off the roof of my apartment.
But I still think inherently, MSNBC being a company, like whether they voice them actually on air, MSNBC being a company, there are certain right-wing values that MSNBC is going to permanently hold.
Like what?
Like, I mean, you have to support capitalism to a certain extent, which when you look at like the political compass chart, left.
I mean, Microsoft also owns MSNBC.
Yeah, like, well, they're like as a company as a whole, you're limited on how far left wing you can go.
Sure.
Like, MSNBC isn't going to support workers on boards. Like,
Yeah.
there is a limit to how far left wing you can go when you're associated with a company, because companies inherently can't go past a certain point and still be representing their own interests.
I'm saying he should just go to Apple, or he should just go to YouTube, do his own thing. I think that'd be the way to go. I don't know why you wouldn't.
And that's
probably
why
the reason why.
Bill Maher's real interesting to me, because it's so funny how left wing he was until the strike happened, and he was like, "I'm bringing my people back." He was gonna break the picket line.
Oh, really?
He was gonna do the show without his writers, and he came out like the day after Drew Barrymore said she was gonna do her show without the writers. And I'm like, damn, virtue signal. It is virtue signaling when you don't even like I imagine being like for the people, left wing, and then just being like, yeah, but not my unionized writers.
Yeah, but not my writers, because I still got to make money. I mean, but how does that work with HBO? Like, do they expect us? I'm assuming they expect a certain amount of content from him every year to stay on their site. So if the writers strike and they're not putting on the show, can HBO crack down on him and say, "Hey, man, get him back in the studio"?
I imagine there's something similar to a clause in like a concert contract talking
Sure.
about what happens if weather or something occurs.
Yeah.
Just like, I feel like that's just listed as something out of his control, because it would be too big of a problem.
Yeah, that's actually a good point.
Like, that would have applied to every single show in Hollywood.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, God, have they finally figured out? I think they finally figured out the writer's strike, isn't it? Like,
The writer's strike is solved.
gotcha.
SAG-AFTRA, the CEOs walked away from the negotiating table.
Oh my God.
They're back
First
now.
of all, that's the funniest thing ever. Whenever like all these super rich celebrities are like, we need to come together in this moment because times are hard, and it's like, buddy, you're sitting on money. The guy that's trying to come up in the industry that is striking for real because he's not getting shit. Like I don't know, do something to help them. Like, figure it out. Like, this whole thing where they come out and they just complain. And it's like, you're Bryan Cranston. Like, I know you have money. Like, you're sitting on cash.
and
You're okay.
I don't know if Bryan Cranston did specifically, but say what you will about certain people. Like, during the writer's strike, Jimmy Kimmel paid his whole staff.
That's
Look,
cool. Like,
look-
that's cool.
Like, he owned where he was responsible, and I forget who it was that there were like 2 restaurants on Hollywood Boulevard, near Hollywood Boulevard, that were like small ones, not like Red Robin, like a locally owned something that he basically had a tab at each restaurant that he was paying for any of one with a WGA card, at least. I think a SAG-AFTRA membership card too.
That's
their
cool.
strike. So like, some people are kicking in their own finances.
Yeah, that's cool.
But I don't think it comes down to that. Is it fair when it's really the CEOs have more money than
Well, sure, like
God? And
of course, yeah.
they're the
but-
ones creating the problem.
Sure, and that's a fair argument because yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're taking like way too much money than what they should really be taking.
I mean, I saw something commentary. I think it was on Elon Musk. It was if you can be CEO of 3 companies, is it that hard of a job? Like,
Oh, I'm sure it is. I'm sure that guy's crazy busy.
I don't know. I feel like
I'm sure that I'm sure the stress of managing all 3 of those companies is insane.
it is, but at the same time,
I guarantee you it's not easy.
I can't do my job 3 times over.
I guarantee you it's not easy.
No, but the thing is, you're your own boss who can manage your time how you feel like it.
Not really. I mean, like Elon Musk does kind of do whatever the hell he wants, but for a lot of those people, you are subject to your board of directors for your company. I would imagine.
Well,
Like you can't just do
Twitter
whatever
doesn't
you
have a board of directors anymore.
Well, sure.
And
but
we
like-
see how Twitter's going. My Twitter's all bots. I don't know about anyone
I mean,
else's.
I think Elon did a good job buying Twitter, changing it to X. They suppressed the Hunter Biden laptop story right before the election, which they did do, by the way. I mean, they did do that. That was like real.
I mean, both
They did.
sides did have the ability to have
Sure.
post.
Sure, and the Trump administration did it a very small, like based on like just the actual money that they sent to Twitter to get posts removed. It was
They
like
were
such
paying.
a
I didn't gather.
Oh,
that they
oh
were
yeah.
paying.
Oh yeah, the Democrat Party paid a lot of money to Twitter to get stuff removed. The Trump administration did it too, but it was a very small amount in comparison, which does make it a non-issue for a lot of people. It's like, oh, well, if like Trump's doing it too, then like why are we just going after the, you know?
And to me, there's a difference because, okay, I don't think Joe Biden is the cleanest of politicians in terms of what he's done, but
Mhm.
Trump kind of. It's not necessarily a bad thing for Trump when he gets bad publicity. It very much fits his character.
You know, it does. It does.
So he doesn't
Yeah.
as urgently need something removed negative about him from social media. So you can see why it would be a better use of Trump's campaign funding to bring bad things up about the other people. Now, I do think
Sure.
we're going to see like a bell curve effect to how many bad things Trump can have and have it keep gaining him popularity.
Sure, eventually there will be like a diminishing return.
I mean, no return. I think at how
He's going to win. He's going to win. That's my prediction right now. He's going to win. I'm just saying it. He's going to win. I think he is.
I would say other election patterns would indicate that's incorrect, but also once Trump got elected, so Trump getting elected was very much in line with regular election patterns. Democrat president, 2 terms, Republican president, 2 terms is usually what happens.
Sure.
I feel like I forget when I think that Bush Sr., ever since Bush Sr., that pattern has existed.
Mhm.
So that's a pretty long-standing pattern. When it comes down to it, Trump losing the election was kind of the first sign that pattern wouldn't hold true. And then when you see that we didn't lose the Senate in the midterms,
Who's we?
Democrats.
Okay.
I identify with Democrats.
Don't lump me in with them, Cade. Don't lump me in with the crooked Joe Biden and the radical Democrats.
When you see Democrats did not lose the Senate in the midterms and actually gained a seat, that's incredibly rare. And when you see that it wasn't a bloodbath for Democrats in the House and they held way more than they were supposed to.
And that's fair. But my thought is just like if the rest of the world continues its current course, then I actually would prefer Trump being in office over Biden just because he's so unpredictable that all these other world powers, like there was the guy Jared Kushner who used to be his Secretary of Defense. Was that the guy?
No, he was not his secretary.
Who is Jared
Defense.
Kushner? He was.
I don't know. He's Ivanka's husband.
He was a close advisor to Trump during his presidency.
Are you going to bring up his relations with Saudi Arabia?
No, I'm
Okay,
actually,
'cause
no,
I
no,
hate-
no, I'm actually not. But I'm saying like he went on the Lex Friedman podcast and he was talking about like, hey, he was like, I don't think that this stuff would have happened if Trump was in office because he's so unpredictable that these other world leaders didn't know how far he would go or how he would react, so they were very careful around him.
I don't love that answer.
Sure, and I don't love it either, but also as soon as Trump leaves office, China starts getting loud, Israel-Palestine pops off, Russia invades Ukraine. It's like all this stuff happened. And I'm not saying that's directly because of Trump, but I'm just saying, like, who knows? It's entirely possible that if he was in office, none of this stuff would have happened.
I heard about nukes from North Korea and Russia under Trump still. And I think...
Sure, but you didn't hear... Sure, but it wasn't a war. It wasn't a war breaking out.
I don't think Russia and Ukraine... I think Russia would be emboldened by a Trump presidency because they'd have they would not... I don't think the U.S. would have stepped up for you. I think Ukraine would have fallen in 2 weeks under Trump's presidency.
Okay, but also would Putin? My question is like, and I don't know the answer to this, but would Putin have even done it in the first place?
Yes,
Okay. How many chances did he have to do it before?
I feel like that's a false
Maybe that is
way to argue.
I'm sure maybe that is.
Because
I don't know. I'm not claiming to be an expert. I'm just saying, like,
then you could blame
knows?
Obama for Crimea because he didn't do Crimea under Bush.
Okay.
Or you could
fair. Hey, I don't know. I'm
not
claiming-
like a Bush did 9/11, but you could blame Bush for 9/11 because our airport security was so trash up until that point anyways.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Maybe I'll draw them. Maybe it's a false argument. I'm just saying I would prefer to have Trump in office if World War III pops off than Biden.
I don't like either of them.
Well, I don't like.
I don't think either of them are good military
I don't like.
minds.
I don't like either one of them either. But Trump can put together a sentence and like talk to people. can.
We'll agree to disagree on
he
his
doesn't.
ability
He
to
doesn't.
put together a sentence.
He doesn't say. He says crazy things, and I don't like him. I'm not saying I would never vote for him, but I'm saying if I had to choose between those two, Trump or Biden in office, if World War III happens.
If World War III happens, I'm a lot more worried about who's like Secretary of Defense, who's on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Like,
Sure.
Mark Milley is someone that I really like as a military
I have
mind.
no idea who that is.
He was, I forget exactly.
This is
his-
the hilarious thing. Like, people know me as a political person at Point Park, and I'm like, I follow none of it whatsoever. I don't know anything about trade deals or foreign policy, and maybe I should shut my mouth on this one.
I forget
Probably
what. So I forget what his exact title was, but
I'm
he was
dying, son.
he's a 4-star general who
I'm
has
sweating
had
for
military experience with both the Trump and Biden administration.
Trump didn't look too well. He was very wet. He's very sweaty. He's wet. I'm dying over here. Are you hot in that thing?
You know what?
You're glistening a little bit.
I'm pretty comfortable.
I'm glistening, I think.
But
Are you comfy?
Yeah, I've gotten more comfy over time.
I have not. I'm just getting warmer and warmer by the instant.
how long we've been? This is only.
We've been going for like 30 minutes. Yeah, and I'm dying. I'm roasting. I'm gonna get destroyed in here.
How
man.
long's your podcast typically?
I don't know, like an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Okay.
Usually what we go for. We go for however long we want to over here. There's not really a set
I'm
time.
just curious how dead you're gonna be at.
Oh my god, by 2 hours I'm gonna actually look like him. I'm gonna slowly turn into him more and more as I get sweatier.
Just gonna melt like ice cream.
yeah, like he does, just melts.
I mean,
You're gonna look like an MSNBC photo of Trump,
yeah, when they just alter the shit out of it and they just
or they just picked the worst.
like they always pick the worst one.
politely, I don't know how many people listen to this. So watch me. Someone I
Logan
know.
Paul listens to this every week. I swear to God,
someone
Trump.
I know will hit me for like body shaming for describing Trump's body type as melting ice cream.
But that's what's. Hey, can we be real for a moment? That's what it is.
That's what he looks like.
That's what it is. And Biden just looks like a freaking like a pixie stick. You know, stuff you dip in just a white stick candy.
He's that pale.
That's Biden. He's like colorless taffy, or something. I don't know. I'm just thinking like, why are we comparing them to candy? But that is true. That is what Trump's body looks like.
Why are we?
I don't know. You called him melted ice cream. I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't talking about wanting to lick him or anything. to be
No,
clear.
of course not. You're just saying like, but that's what it is.
I'm just saying we talked a lot about things that like pixie sticks, ice cream. Those are things you lick and suck, and I'm
No, you're the one that went there. You're the one that went there. If Brecken was here, it would be over. It would be over by now. I would have had to censor.
It would have been over like 1 minute.
1 minute in. We would have had to get a live censor button on the audio board.
Yeah, that's the worst thing.
Put
I
it on a
think I'll
delay
say
so that
today.
you could be Kevin would be censoring the whole time. If Brecken was here, we thought it would have been funny if Brecken dressed up as Joe Biden and didn't tell me he was going to do it. That would
Gavin
have
mentioned that.
unreal.
He's like, Brecken's smart enough to pick up on that. I'm like, I wouldn't pick up on that. Am I dumb?
I would have. That would have been hilarious if he showed up as Joe Biden. I would have died laughing. That'd be so funny.
I feel like Joe Biden's hard to do a good impression of.
Well, you got to understand. Growing up in Connecticut, back when I was in the military, there was a. That's my best Biden that I can do. You just have to stutter a lot. You just have to stutter.
Stutter and talk like an old man.
And that's
all
where
you have to
you
do.
get into trouble, though, because his stutter is like a thing that existed before his brain went. So are you making fun of something that's
No.
fair game, I guess, is that fair game?
No. I mean, in all honesty, that wouldn't be fair game. But if I'm doing an impression,
Yeah,
you can't not do the stutter.
It's hard because, like, Saturday Night Live does it, and I've got his stutter, and I've got no problem with it. But I feel like you've got to do it a certain amount of comedic justice for me to, like, I don't think I could do the comedic justice to the full impression.
No, I don't.
It would look like I was leaning too hard on the stutter, and that would be where I'd find my Biden impression would be problematic.
Yeah, I mean, probably. I haven't worked on I've spent a long time working on my trumpet. I've spent a lot of time working on this, Cade.
I like when Trump tried to say, "Oh, it was a place." Yes, he couldn't say Yosemite. He said Yosemite. That's an old one.
There's so many good ones that he has. I'm telling you, I have like a top 5. I love the Hamburgers tweet.
Hamburgers.
The Hamburgers tweet
Kafifi
is
was a
so
good
good. Kafifi was great. I loved when he roasted Elon on Truth Social. That one is unreal. You remember that one?
He roasted Elon.
Yeah, driverless.
Ships to nowhere.
Yeah. Electric cars that don't drive long enough, driverless cars that crash, or rocket ships to nowhere. That's what he said. Should I pull it up? I have it.
Yeah, he kind of hit that one. I'm not gonna lie.
He goes, when Elon Musk came to me with his many subsidized projects, whether it's electric cars that don't drive long enough, driverless cars that crash, or rocket ships to nowhere. It's like,
You know what? Where Elon actually does
Rocket ships
lose
to
me.
nowhere is hilarious.
I mean, rocket ships to nowhere is undeniably, that might be the funniest thing he's ever said.
If you look at Elon Musk and look at his projects, and like I would expect Democrats to benefit Tesla more than Republicans.
Like for them to support it more than Republicans?
Well, yeah, electric cars.
Do
like,
Republicans support Tesla?
I don't mean like support, like bills passing. Like it's interesting to me that Elon Musk kind of has these publicly conservative views, because if I was in Musk's position owning Tesla, and is he still allowed to be CEO? I know there was some antitrust or something.
I think he's the techno king of Tesla.
We changed his title.
You didn't know about that? He
Techno
changed his title to tech. Isn't that fire though? That's baller. He changed his title to Techno King, and he was like, I did it just to show people that these titles don't really mean a whole lot of anything. You can kind of make them whatever you want.
Yeah, they can.
You can make whatever you want. The
But-
Techno King.
If I am interested in electric, and Tesla's basically, as far as I know, solely electric cars.
Yes, it is. They don't have any gas.
I'm going to look and go, is there a chance Democrats subsidize electric car purchases to encourage switching to electric vehicles? I'd say there's a good chance that happens.
Sure.
And I'd want to financially and verbally support Democrats, just from a self-gain standpoint.
But that's why I like him, because he doesn't really give a shit. I like that part. That's the part that I actually like. I like that he's not afraid to be like, yeah, I have conservative views. There's not a lot of conservative billionaires out there.
Does he believe it? And that's where it gets interesting. Does he believe in what he's doing with electric cars as a concept, or is he doing it because he sees money in it?
No, I mean, I think from what I've heard that he genuinely cares. Like, he's doing that, and he's doing the SpaceX. I think SpaceX at this point is the most legitimate company that he's got going for him right now.
I think unpopularly, I think going to space is dumb.
I think it's cool. I think we need to do it.
So I think when
think we
it
should
comes
do
to
it.
like from a function standpoint, like satellites and things like that,
Mhm.
yes. Going to Mars, where do we gain?
Well, not just
I said to
ours,
the
but like
astronaut.
resources. Like as someone who, like, values environmental protection, I think it would be a better idea to start mining in space than mining the Earth's material more and more. And it,
There are asteroids that pass by that are worth like ridiculous amounts of money, like quadrillions of dollars, because they've got like gold, nickel, like lithium, like rare earth metals.
And maybe that's, but where do we gain? Because we can't prove those metals exist on Mars, to my knowledge.
No,
Like the asteroids, yes. But we're not. Like what SpaceX is doing is not asteroid recovery. It would be insane if we could create like something that could grab.
but that could be
asteroids
next.
out of the
I wish Jeremiah was here. Jeremiah could make the argument for going to Mars way better than I could.
yeah.
But essentially, the argument is like, if we destroy ourselves here, we're done. So if you can guarantee the survival of the species by putting us on 2 planets, why wouldn't you do it?
I don't know why we. I don't want to have a contingency plan. And are we by putting money into going to space? Are we doing ourselves a disservice by not using that money on like carbon capture?
But it's Elon's money. So he can do whatever the hell he wants.
Well, but the government's contracting him.
Sure, but that's also that was also I'm pretty sure that was also a contract that was through NASA anyway.
Yeah, I just feel like
Because right now, what SpaceX does, minus like their Starlink system and launching other satellites up into space, their NASA contract, they just launch astronauts to the International Space Station. Like, that's all they do right now.
Yeah, but but whenever Starship becomes functional, whenever they actually start sending people, they're going to be able. I think they're going to be able to send 100 people. Elon said 100 people. And again, I wish Jeremiah was here. This mic is going to fall apart on me as we're. I mean, guys, look at it. It's sad. It's just a wobbly man.
And I would also like to add on saying, like, human curiosity and, like, just just adventurism, like, trying to find that next frontier.
Yeah.
I'd
I get
support
it.
that if there weren't so many problems to deal with
But
here.
why can't you do both?
I mean, because we have this like and this is what I've always talked about. We've got this made up limited funding in the U.S. when truly, the U.S. has infinite money. It's just about how fast they get it. Because the money's infinitely taxed because it's taxed when I make it, when my company that pays me makes it, when I spend it,
You can tax on everything. It's
yeah,
ridiculous.
it's just but that's how the tax system will always be. It will always be infinitely taxed because it's going to get taxed, and then I'm going to spend it. It's going to get taxed. That's going to be used to pay someone. It's a loop, and it will always be a loop regardless of what the tax rate is. So really,
Sure.
all you need to do is, and this is where it comes down to why it's better for me to have an extra $1,000 than it is for a billionaire to have even an extra $100 million. I'm going to spend that extra $1,000 more than likely. And that's going to get taxed. And that's this is why I support wealth taxes and stuff, is because not only is it going to make the little guy better off, the government's going to have more money. And
Right.
Elon Musk won't notice he wouldn't notice $1 billion coming out of his account.
Sure, but he also, I don't think he actually is sitting on $1 billion. A lot of that is in Tesla stock.
Yes.
A lot of it's in the stocks of his companies
But-
that he owns.
And this is like, it's such a weird loophole that they can pay themselves in stock, though, because I read the tax laws, and if my company gives me a car, that's income.
Right.
Like, they can't gift me a car or something of cash value, but that doesn't apply to stock. Like, he should have to also pay himself liquidated money that will cover the taxes of the stock.
I wish Jeremiah was here. I genuinely do. Jeremiah loves Elon Musk. Like, he's big on that. Our friend Jeremiah is a climate scientist who loves Elon Musk.
And from the perspective of what Elon Musk has created, so I loved Elon Musk before he
Got
became
political.
He's just so unhinged. He felt.
Yeah.
I also question not his intelligence in the sense that I don't think he's smart, but is he as smart as he's presenting himself? Like, is he?
I don't know.
Is he that smart, or is he what happens when you give an engineer money?
Listen, Cade,
Like-
I've talked to Elon Musk, even though I said rocket ships to nowhere. I didn't mean it. Elon's a great guy. He's very smart. He's one of our great geniuses, and he should take care of us because we're taking care of him.
Like, if I grab 10 engineers and give them money, can they do more than Elon Musk? I'd say probably.
No, but Elon Musk isn't building all the rockets by himself. He has teams of engineers that he's paying.
But he presents himself to have. So
I think he is in the lab. Like,
A lot
from what I
more
understand, he
answers.
does actually like go in there with the engineers, and like he knows every component of the rocket and what it does.
and I feel like he's overcredited, and anyone in charge of the company, the engineers he's paying, could do the same thing.
I wouldn't say he's overcredited. I think just his fan base overcredits him.
Sure.
And maybe he just has an annoying fan base the way like Rick and Morty does, where all the Rick and Morty fan base thinks it's like
A lot of overlap there, by the way.
yeah, probably. That's a good
how
point.
they think it's such intelligent humor, and I'm like, I'm a dumbass and I love Rick and Morty.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think that I don't know. I don't know how to feel about him anymore. I like SpaceX because I do think we should go to Mars. I think I think if you can guarantee the long-term survival of our species, then you should do it. Or if you can at least give us a backup plan.
Maybe I've just become cynical and accepted that I'm gonna die before this is a problem, and and I'd rather like not live on a planet that's 5 degrees
Oh,
hotter.
I'm not gonna go. But there are definitely
Yeah.
people in this world that are gonna be like, "Fuck yeah, I'll go to Mars and colonize it." Hell yeah. Yeah, I know. I mean, Jeremiah would probably do it. If Jeremiah had nothing tying him to this Earth, he'd be on the first rocket.
What does that do to international relations? Like the U.S. Does the U.S. claim Mars as a whole?
No, certainly you can't. There's no way you
Yeah,
can.
international treaties, you can't claim exoplanets or moons.
So the
Yeah.
U.S. can't technically claim it. Does
No.
humanity claim it? Like, how does
Yes.
this work?
I don't know. I mean, it would be really cool if every country sent a team.
If humanity claims it, can we? Do we establish new countries on Mars? Like, that's just
New Russia, new China,
Yeah,
new. I mean, that's how it is in sci-fi movies, right?
like,
It's
do
always
they?
like, welcome to New London, and everyone's got like 4 eyes and 1 tooth, and it's like, this sucks.
Can China
Regular London's better than this.
Can China and the U.S. have an actual government that is tied to their government on Mars? Like, what does it do? Like,
It would probably be like an embassy.
I feel like the UN would have to get in on it.
And
Yeah,
also,
definitely.
to be fair, that's not going to happen for a while because we have to get there first. We have to make it habitable. We have to like build the settlement. We have to, and then we can worry about government.
And I feel like that involves, like, think of the expenses, because we're probably talking about terraforming to some extent.
I mean, that's in the way future.
Very
That's
long
in the
process.
way future. That's as
It's
soon
going to
as
be
we-
people living in caves.
I mean, I'll
yeah,
call
and,
it.
and maybe some surface colonies that have regulated temperatures on the inside.
Well, no, because of the radiation. It's
Ooh,
just
that's a
gonna-
good point too. Yeah, you're gonna have to
You're
live
gonna
like
build thick walls if you're going to live on the surface.
McDonald's will be the first corporation. I'm going to call that right now.
Or no, Walmart. A Walmart would be perfect. There's so much land there,
Dude,
unused land.
Think
or
about
Walmart.
think about this. Think about the shopping complexes you could build on Mars.
Hold on.
Think about the capitalism, Cade.
A nice
Think
strip
about
mall.
much. Does McDonald's on Mars have special menu items?
Hell
like
yeah, they
International
do.
McDonald's?
Hell yeah, they do.
Martian
Better believe.
McNuggets.
Martian McNuggets. They're just shaped like little aliens.
Yes.
That'd be fire. I'm telling you, we're giving away ideas for free all the time on this show. I should be charging for all of these, and we'd be making some money off this thing finally. No one told me this podcast wouldn't make any money. No, I'm kidding. Buying all this equipment, I made no money. We made no money off this show. That's how it goes. You got to climb the ladder.
What equipment is actually yours in here?
That camera's ours. We have one of these audio boards, and yeah, I have a few mics. I
I've
have some
definitely
other
seen
equipment.
pictures where you've done it in your apartment.
Yeah. We did one in my apartment. Yeah, we've taken it on the road. Like when we were in Orlando for the Bridge Summit, we had our own mics and shit set up. But yeah, I mean, listen, I'd love to see like a condo complex on Mars. I'd love to see like a Hooters, maybe a Buc-ee's, maybe
Twin Peaks on Mars.
Sure, yeah. I'd love to see like a golf course.
Hooters was way too high on your list.
I know, I'm kidding.
I've got a problem.
I'm not saying like these are in no particular order. I'm just saying these are the things that I'd like to see on Mars.
How does lower gravity affect boob sag?
The heavies are gonna be crazy at Hooters on Mars, dude? Are you kidding me?
Sorry, I hate myself for that one.
Yeah, that's a little unhinged. We gotta dial it back. But that's but hey, listen, just purely on the basis of a thought experiment, Cade. That's a great question. We should get that answered. I'd love to know. Yeah, but I mean, but that's what I would love to see on Mars. I would love to see the free market dominate.
I would hate that stuff.
Here's a question. Why don't we here's an idea. Why don't we let this other settlement on Mars be communist or socialist just to see if it works?
Because the U.S. would put
China
sanctions
outpost.
on it to cripple it.
Let China put an output. I mean, China's system of running its country doesn't work now, but genuinely, what if you were like
from a GDP standpoint, it does.
Oh. Sorry, folks, that was nasty. That's wild.
Am I wrong?
From a GD.
What's that?
What's it doing?
What's that like?
Rangers, what happened? What is it doing? No. Why? Crooked Point Park is trying to shut us down. This is Crooked Joe Biden.
Fucking empty it.
Wait,
Bruh.
so when did it cut off?
Recently.
Pause. Wait, just pause it. Yeah. Wait, fuck.
Oh.
Pause.
We'll see. It should be fine. Crooked Joe Biden tried to shut down the podcast. They tried to shut down the cameras. They don't want people seeing this. This is the greatest podcast that's ever been done. Isn't that right, Cade?
Sure, we'll call it.
Crooked Joe Biden tried to shut down the podcast. You remember the clip from the Folsom when he's like, "Who the hell is Ice Spice?"
Wait, what?
And the Nelk Boys were like, "We're gonna throw out some names, and you've got to give us a one-word answer for what you think about this
Were they like
person."
in person with him?
Yeah, they were at Mar-a-Lago.
That's wild.
They were there. It's hilarious. No, but they were like throwing out names, and they were like Joe Biden. He was like dumb. They were like Kim Jong-un, and he was like interesting. And they were like Ice Spice, and he goes, "Who the hell is Ice Spice?" and then he played some of her music, and he was like, "Well, I like it."
I don't imagine Trump listening to Ice Spice. What? Do we imagine Trump enjoying music just for a real second? Like, we've seen him dance. Do we envision him genuinely?
History of the presidency. He's got great moves.
Isn't
there the video of him driving the car with his kid with Barron, and he's listening to like Taylor Swift?
Barron was or Trump was?
No, like
Who
Melania's in
picked the music?
Lonnie's in like the back seat recording, and Barron's up front
with Trump.
Yeah, and Taylor Swift's playing.
And that got memed. They were having him like play all sorts of different music.
No one's talking, by the way. It's just like a recording, like backseat POV.
Yeah.
playing-
They're all sitting in silence.
Yeah, it's just okay.
Listening to like Bad Blood or something. Like
That's so weird.
Is Trump a Swiftie? I bet Trump could at least like respect Taylor Swift for the hustle.
Do we?
Like, making $1 billion over the summer on a tour.
Do we think he holds a grudge? Because I'm pretty sure she endorsed Joe Biden.
Yeah, he'd be
He's
like,
a grudge holder.
he'd be like, woke Taylor Swift. That new album wasn't so good, but she fills out arenas.
So
You know? She's being propped
My
up by
mic's
the
going
woke
limp.
Democrats.
That's the thing. Like when you look at Trump and most of his campaign music, like he plays country music. I think he's pandering. I don't think Trump likes country music.
Fuck no, I don't think so either. He dapped up Kanye. He's probably listening to Graduation as we speak.
He just. I can't say anything.
Listen, Kanye made some comments that he shouldn't have made, but at the end of the day, he made Graduation, guys. Let's be real. He made Graduation. He made The Life of Pablo.
Trump would definitely say the full title of Fellas in Paris. Well, I forget what they called it on the one.
Nuclears in
movie.
Paris. Nuclears in Paris.
Fellas in Paris.
Fellas in Paris.
I'm like, what do we call
Nuclears.
that one?
The N word, the nuclear word. Nuclears in Paris.
I'm gonna say it.
I'm gonna say it. Oh my gosh.
Was that a Trump line too?
Yeah.
He scares me sometimes.
He's like, I'm gonna say it.
Yeah, that's right. He kind of like moaned when he said
It was
that.
super weird.
He was getting off on that.
Oh man.
He moans a lot if you watch him speak.
Probably gets off on himself.
He does. He's an egomaniac. Come on.
He just jacks it in the mirror.
Jesus Christ, stop. Mute this man's mic. Get him off.
Get him out of here.
Get him out. What are you
Fired.
doing? If Brecken was here, Pointberg might have been like, you can't do this show anymore
Did
in
you
the studio.
practice you're fired?
Huh?
You're fired.
You're fired.
Yeah.
You're fired. I'm firing you fired.
I deserve it.
I'm going to fire Joe Biden. I'm going to indict him. Wouldn't that be so funny if if Trump wins, the first thing he does is like an executive order to like indict Joe Biden?
So I'm not convinced that you can't legally write an executive order to indict someone because all you're doing is writing.
Oh, I just made that up. I have no idea how
I think
it
you
works.
could.
I just made it up.
Because an executive order is just telling your administration what you'd like them to do.
Yeah.
And then when Biden tried to waive student loan debt and the Supreme Court shot him down, what he was doing was he was writing an executive order for what he'd like the Education Department and the Secretary of Education to do.
Mm-hmm.
So is the Justice Department...
That wouldn't go to the Treasury?
No.
That wouldn't go to like the money part of that would go to
I
the
feel like the
education?
I feel like education has powers regarding student loans. I could be wrong, but I feel like...
I mean, I'm sure there's a reason why that I'm just not thinking of right now, but that seems a little ridiculous.
I mean, student loans are...
They should have drained the swamp.
Regardless, I don't think a law is in place that the president can't tell the Justice Department what to do.
Yeah, so I'm telling you, he's just gonna walk in and like start indicting people like as revenge.
To be clear, those departments don't have to follow executive orders.
Sure.
But
But he would put people in the offices that would just listen
It's
to
not binding. He'd put someone in the office.
him. Yeah, he would just put someone there that would just listen to him. Yeah. Well, Cade, here's my question. Here's my question for you, Cade. Here's my question. Is there anyone running in the GOP that you like even a little bit?
So I would want to say I could accept Chris Christie, but he flip-flops too much for me. Like he's pro-Trump until
that was
it
my
doesn't
favorite
benefit
thing
him.
ever. Trump fat shaming Chris Christie is without a doubt one of my favorite things that he does.
Trump out of all people.
Trump fat shaming Chris Christie is unreal.
Running now. So here's
Running.
Running. I don't think there's, and I can't say I like desperately search for somebody I'd support. What we get into, so presidency, I think they've got horrible candidates. Honestly, there's not a moderate I could support the Republicans have in the presidency. When you look at the House of Representatives, I actually had a lot of optimism with the House Speaker argument because there were Republicans that said that they would not support a House Speaker who voted to overturn the 2020 election. And
That's good.
So say what you will, that's a very principled stance, even if I don't agree with a lot of their other things.
Yeah.
But then the guy that they unanimously voted to overturn the 2020 election.
Yeah, that's not great.
So they've really all just compromised their principles there, and I'm like, so the House of Representatives really lost me. Republican senators, I feel like there was one that I have an odd amount of respect for Mitt Romney as someone who doesn't agree with him.
Yeah, I do too. The fact that he was like, "Hey, these old people got to get out of office. It's time for young people to step up." I thought that was great.
Are you familiar with Adam Kinzinger? He was in the House of Representatives. Kinzinger.
Kinzinger.
Kinz.
Oh no.
So he stood up against Trump heavily, like probably back when the Ukraine impeachment happened. Like for a good amount of his presidency. I don't agree with Kinzinger on most things still. Guns being one of them. I don't agree with him on a lot of things though.
Sure.
And that said, he held on to that in the end, including giving up his House seat. Similar to Liz Cheney, but I have my problems with Liz Cheney because she was a Tea Party Republican, and I largely blame the Tea Party Republicans for where we're at, where the Republican Party is at now, I suppose we'll go.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's sure.
So I have some beef with Liz Cheney
Do you
still.
think the Democrats have any responsibility in that whatsoever?
With the Tea Party Republicans?
No, do you think that the Democratic Party or the political left has any sort of responsibility or has any sort of do they take any of the blame for the current situation that we're in?
It depends on who we want to talk about takes the blame. Like I don't fancy blaming the Twitter mob. When you look at the internet, that's like an interesting thing. So being someone who we don't have to get into Palestine, Israel, because
here's the thing: we can get into it, but my opinions will stop at America. My opinions will not go.
Being someone who doesn't support Israel and hasn't for a while, and the left, if you look at social media, you would largely assume that the left is like 70% pro-Palestine. I think the new Pew Research poll had Democrats like 56% pro-Palestine.
It's like 50-50.
It's not as
crazy.
It's not as far off as social media will have you think. So here's the thing. I think a lot of Republican voters are driven to fight what the left looks like from a social media standpoint and from an internet standpoint.
Okay.
I think that I think the internet, if you look at it, you see the fringe is the loudest.
Sure.
So
but what about all the data that Fire put out about cancel culture?
You're gonna have to up Fire.
The Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression. They're a free speech organization. They put out a bunch of data about cancel culture, showing that it is real. That there's X number of professors that have been fired from their jobs for saying things that students disagreed with, and you look at it case by case, there's very few times that this professor said something that actually warranted them getting fired. But that number's gone up significantly over the last couple of years.
Well, it depends on what we define as cancel culture, I suppose.
It's professors getting fired for making comments in a classroom that students deemed to be inappropriate and then moved for the university to get them fired, and then the university actually let go of that person.
Can we talk about maybe students paying what we pay for college have the entitlement to not like a professor and not want to learn from them?
Of course, but there you go through. There are case by case examples of so the one that was really egregious, I thought, for example, and I maybe should look this up so I can actually I'll try to find it. But this did happen. It was a professor, I believe it was a university in New England, that was doing an art history class. There's a module on Middle Eastern art, and in the syllabus it said, hey, there is where I'm going to show art of Muhammad. It's going to show his face. I understand that that's blasphemous for people that are a part of the religion of Islam, so you do not have to come to this. This is not a mandatory class. It was warned about in the syllabus. Girl shows up to class. He shows the image. She gets offended. She reports him. The university fires him. That's the kind of stuff that's going on. And it's like, that guy, it wasn't mandatory. He told you it was going to be there. You didn't have to go.
And this goes into a weird area for me that I don't feel great about having a strong opinion on it not being an overly religious person.
Oh, sure. I mean, I'm not looking at it from a religious standpoint either. I'm just saying, like,
no,
that guy shouldn't be fired if he told you it was going to be there and if it's not a mandatory class.
So especially because as not a religious person, it's hard for me to say because I don't understand it, and I also feel like still as a non-religious person, not that she was necessarily right or that he should have been fired.
Yeah.
But
I'm just bringing this up because
do we feel Muslim religions are I don't know if there's multiples the way there is in Christianity. I don't
with that I don't know either.
There's at least different ways to practice it.
Sure. Sure.
The same way there is different ways to practice Catholicism
or Christianity
or Jewishness or however
Judaism.
Yeah, there's different ways at least to practice it.
Yeah.
Like it's largely not as respected as other religions have been historically in the US.
Okay.
And I guess my question is,
I'm bringing this up because you said, like, and I do agree with you, like, that social media, like, maybe a lot of what the right is doing is based on this sort of false sense of what the left is. And I do agree with that. But then you look at, like, there's a lot of data on cancel culture that is, like, pretty concerning in my opinion.
I guess my question would be, and it's hard to pose this question because I don't think there's something like that in the other. So, for example, Christianity, like, saying Jesus' name in vain is like a blasphemous
Yeah, like people
thing.
do it all the time.
And I'm like, that's something that's kind of normal within our culture as Americans and how we speak.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I can't pose that as the same as showing Muhammad's face, which I didn't know was a
Yeah, it's apparently a
was a
blasphemous thing.
no-no.
You're not supposed to. I believe his face is always shrouded in some way.
That's not something we necessarily do frequently enough that I can pose that comparison.
Yeah.
But I guess my question would be, is this something one would do to other religions, or was this specific? It's a difficult game of respecting a religion, because also when it comes to, he's like, you don't have to show up.
Yeah, it was not a mandatory class. And that was mentioned in this, like, you can look at the syllabus, it was mentioned in the syllabus that it was not. And fire actually got him his job back.
Am I being done a disservice as if I'm a Muslim student, because I'm paying for class time, having a class that I'm essentially told I'm going to do something that disrespects your religion and you're going to be uncomfortable up here. So there's so much nuance to it that without reading the full details of it, I'm not going to give a strong take. I'll say I don't like the way the term cancel culture is used, because sometimes it is used as called repercussions for your actions.
Well, sure, but I think that's a different story. I think, like, the Harvey Weinstein thing, that's not cancel culture. That's
and I don't think anyone
him
used
being
it as
punishment for doing legitimately fucked up things. But I think in these instances where, like, at these universities, and I think it goes for the Israel-Palestine thing too. Like, now there are universities saying that if you're having a pro-Palestine protest, you can get kicked off campus. That's wrong. Like, that goes against our free speech code. Like, you can't. So you should be able to protest Israel and protest Palestine. You should be able to protest all of it, and it's protected by the First Amendment.
Well, and the First Amendment, it's a gray area argument, because I do believe companies can infringe on your rights, and I think that should be equally a problem to an extent. But it only protects you from governments. That's the truth of the Constitution. It is meant to protect you from the government.
DeSantis is saying, like, to, like, students in, like, Florida universities that if you're out there protesting Palestine,
they'll be kicked out of the school.
/ like, supporting Hamas, which by the way, those are two very different things that, from what I've seen, the left is completely incapable of acknowledging.
No,
Like person by person, people have maybe said it to me subtly, but like the overall messaging, especially these universities, when you see like students chanting "gas the Jews" at American universities, that's crazy.
So I've not seen that clip. Something I actually want to bring up that I'm incredibly disappointed by. I always say that there is an acceptable line of this is gonna either sound really bad or make sense. First off, there is an acceptable line of vandalism. Someone painted "Free Palestine" on a wall, and I think that message. Do I think it was right? Probably not. Do I think that person? This was at a school. The person's not tracked down, so they're just a random person. Do I think what that person did objectively did that much harm? I think it was paint. John Fetterman tweeted about it and said it was reprehensible. This is somewhere he's let me down significantly. He said it was reprehensible to say to support Palestine.
Okay.
Right now. And he won't call for a ceasefire, and this is where he's let me down significantly. I don't need a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. I need a ceasefire from where we're not hitting innocents.
Yeah, but Hamas is killing innocent people, so I'd say a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas seems reasonable.
Well, but Israel has every right to attack Hamas.
Of course.
They do not have the right to do what they're doing.
When it comes to just like telling people in the Gaza Strip, oh, you have to evacuate, and it's like, where are these people going to go? They're not going to go anywhere.
Well, Egypt won't let them.
Yeah, Egypt.
If you look, Palestine either has to accept, or Israel either has to accept Palestinian refugees, or not do it. And they also need to give more than 24 hours because you can't evacuate a city that large in 24 hours.
Yeah, but so Egypt, that kind of stuff is...
Egypt tends to not want Palestinians. But when you look at like the history of Palestine, what it is Hamas was originally funded and created by Israel.
Yeah, and here's the hilarious part too, is that, I mean, the reason why I think the left should be condemning Hamas a lot more is because, as usual, we've got to play the oppressed oppressor game, forgetting that corruption exists everywhere and everyone's done horrible things. But forget that. We've got to play oppressed versus oppressor. How is Hamas not an oppressor? They got legitimately elected years ago. As soon as they got elected...
so that's not exactly correct.
I thought that... So here's what I heard. Now, again, this could be wrong, and this is why I don't like to talk about this stuff. But from what I was told... And I get that sounds... I get how that sounds, folks. I understand this. I'm not claiming to be an expert. I'm just... I don't... You know... I was told that, like, back in, like, 2006, they were legitimately elected in as a part of the government as, like, freedom fighters against Israel. And then after that, they just consolidated all the power, and now they're just ruling the Gaza Strip.
Israel put them in place... They're not put them in place, funded them, similar to I'd go with the way we funded the Taliban to fight Russia, destabilize Russia.
Yeah.
So they were meant to be funded to destabilize Palestine internally. Mm-hmm. So the legitimate government of Palestine that is recognized by the UN is the Palestinian Liberation Organization.
The PLO.
Yes, the PLO. So they're the legitimate government recognized by the UN of Palestine. And so they're a pretty left-wing... Do you have nosebleeds or what's going on?
No, I rubbed makeup off my face by accident. I forgot that I had it on. Oops.
They're a pretty left-wing government, and Israel's a pretty right-wing government. And we also know Israel pretty much wants... Israel wants all that land.
Okay.
Israel and Palestine have never gotten along.
No, and I don't think they ever will. Like that part of the world's never going to be peaceful.
And what it realistically comes down to is, in 2014 or 2015, Hamas came with a deal to return the Gaza Strip to PLO control. Mm-hmm. They went back on that.
Right.
Hamas is a terrorist organization.
Yeah, okay. And that's like that's the part that like I think is very obvious that not enough people are like openly saying.
But they govern that portion of Palestine, whether we like it or not, and I don't think it's good for the Palestinian people are victims of being
Yes,
governed
undoubtedly.
of being governed by Hamas.
That's my point. Is like
section.
how is Hamas also not an oppressor in the oppressor-oppressed
But
framework?
also, Israel is to blame for Hamas's existence because the PLO and Hamas aren't necessarily friends either. But
Hamas is one of the major political factions in.
we'll call them that.
on Google. Not that I trust Google with everything, but like that's what Google
they
says
politically could control the Gaza Strip. But it would be similar to if like white supremacists took over a state. Like it's not.
It wouldn't happen.
just
I don't think.
It's just a portion of Palestine being controlled by this organization.
So the PLO doesn't have the ability to get them out of there?
I mean, Palestine, when you look at the fact that Israel has oppressed Palestine.
Okay.
When you look at it, like, and also they're not, if you look at a map of Israel and Palestine, the two sections of Palestine are not touching.
Yeah, no, I mean, like the stuff with Israel with like the settlements seems insane to me. I don't think that and I'll just give this briefly, my opinion on this situation, and I'm not claiming to be an expert. I would like innocent people to stop dying. I would like that to be the first course of action.
I think I think there would be, it would take a lot of healing on both sides. I don't see...
No, but here's the thing. I got to stop you. That's healing, like, that's not, like, how?
Between Israel and Palestine.
It would take hundreds of years.
Not Israel and Hamas.
Sure.
But, like, if they can do, like, I'm the enemy of my enemy is my friend. If Israel can just go, look, I don't like what Hamas did.
Mm-hmm.
The PLO is the lesser of the two evils in Israel's eyes, even though I don't think Israel likes any Palestinians. Innocent either. I think but that's opinions I'll keep to myself right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's out there in the universe now, Cade.
I mean, I don't need to go into depth of that. Palestine.
Like you seem more informed on this than I do. I stayed away from it on purpose, so I'm sorry that I don't maybe have like rebuttals or anything like to any of this.
I don't support giving all of the land back to Palestine for the reason of this is an almost 100-year war, and you have.
Oh, it's older than that.
I don't know.
Is this not like but is this not like a deeply religious war as well?
It is
like,
a deeply religious war.
Like that part of the world has been hotly contested for like hundreds of years.
When you look at it, you do have to look at it from the lens of the innocents. There were children born today in Israel that have nothing to do with this war, and you can't strip all land from them. They have these innocent people have the right to a government that represents them as much as any.
Of course.
I don't like Netanyahu or however we say his name, but the same with Palestine. These Palestinians have a right to a government that represents them. And
yeah.
I don't personally see a way a government from Palestine or Israel could govern the whole land and all of the people without oppressing the others just in their current state of affairs. Both sides would probably oppress the other if given the control of the government.
Yeah. That's what I'd imagine. I imagine the only way that, again, I'm not a foreign policy expert. I don't know if I have to say that again. I'm not an expert. But it seems to me like this is like fairy tale land, because I don't know if this is even possible, but like you'd have to get rid of Hamas first, and then you'd have to go back to the table and rediscuss the situation.
I'm of two minds of it, that on one hand I'm like, because I believe in a free Palestine and because I kind of
real quick, that's a buzzword. What I got to ask, what exactly do you mean by free Palestine?
Believe that Palestine needs to have borders that are not contested by Israel.
Okay.
I think Israel there needs to be official Palestine borders, and conflict needs to stop between the two. I believe that Palestine deserves the ability to govern themselves and not have no Israel military in Palestinian land, no Israel government presence.
Okay.
Palestine as a sovereign state, because right now they don't really meet what we'd call
The sovereign state.
You technically, by in my political science class, by standards, a nation is a group of people with a group identity, and a state is actually a state that meets uncontested borders. I think there was something about an actual effective government that can govern.
Okay.
Palestine wouldn't technically meet the requirements to be a state right now.
Right.
I think the UN recognizes them as a state. They're a non-voting member, I want to say, in the UN.
No, I think they have a special.
They're like
I looked this up. They're not officially part of the UN. They have like a special ally position.
They have
Same
a
as, like
weird
Japan and
status.
South Korea.
But when you look at it, what it means for me is uncontested borders, all their borders touching. They need more land than they have. They have been done wrong in that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be a country, you shouldn't have two separate connected pieces of.
As we have Puerto Rico and Hawaii, and Alaska.
Well, Hawaii's obviously different. Hawaii's an island. I'm saying like you're saying.
Yeah,
I understand. Israel has actually like carved
there's
the middle
actually
out of-
land in between.
Yeah, no, and I know what you mean, but Hawaii's not the same situation. It's an island. Puerto Rico's a different situation. No, I know what it looked like, but that's okay. So that's I had to get that out of the way because obviously I don't, and I agree with you on that. Like, if that's what, but okay. Here's my question: Do you see a potential problem with that on the messaging?
This is over the years.
Yeah.
No, I don't see a problem with that messaging wise. I think that's pretty clear.
Well, no, but I guess, but do you think that because here's the thing: people just throw around free Palestine. They never really explain what exactly they mean by that. And I'm sure there are some people. I mean, I've seen the videos of it. Like BLM Chicago put out a graphic with a guy on a paraglider, like falling out of the sky with a parachute, with a Palestinian flag that came out of the top that says "We support Palestine." And it's like that guy on the paraglider landed on the ground and started killing innocent people with a gun. So what does free Palestine mean to those people?
I mean, and that's a strange thing. That's like, what does Christianity mean to people? Like,
no, come on. That's not what I mean though. Like
But
the paragliders dropped into Israel and started murdering innocent people.
No matter what, I could write a full manifesto on what these things mean, and you're still going to have people who take those words and twist them or use them to rationalize different events. That's what I mean when I say, well, what does Christianity mean? Like, there's always going to be someone who can take your words and I will first and foremost, I'm not rationalizing any violence against innocents on either side in the conflict. What I will say, that man was a terrorist. But I did bring up when it comes to I want to say it would be sociology, but just the psychology of inevitably we can look back on history. Oppressed people turn to violence, right?
Yeah.
So at what point does Israel have to acknowledge that maybe their oppression of Palestinian people created these organizations just as well, and these terrorists? If you just from the study of people historically, literally the way the U.S. was founded, which was not that severe of oppression. It was over basically. Colonialism isn't great, but
it was an illegitimate government.
Yes, but it relatively free compared to a lot of groups as well.
Okay, but it was still an illegitimate government. They were still forcing troops in people's houses without them having permission. They were not. I get what you're saying. It's not a situation where people were being openly murdered in the streets.
But we rationalize our own history, and then we watch people get pushed further and wonder how violence occurred.
No, I'm not surprised at all why violence happens. I'm not surprised by any of it.
So when we talk about it, I'm like, yeah, I think just like the famous clip of Hassan Piker of America deserved 9/11, and he kind of goes
Jesus.
But it does go into that clip of at what point should you have known violence was going to occur.
Oh yeah, I mean I'm not surprised by any of it. And again, my opinions on this particular matter pretty much stay within the borders of this country. I think more people in this country need to shut the hell up about it.
I don't think the U.S. as a whole should have ever funded Israel.
Well, okay, and sure. And I haven't done the issue. I don't know.
It was about
enough about.
It was about Russia. We wanted to get standing in the Middle East. I don't know why we chose to support Israel specifically but we needed to create an ally in the Middle East.
So then you can make the argument that we shouldn't have done that. Yeah.
And the only argument...
I want to wrap this up because we are doing... This is a Halloween special. You're dressed as a monkey. I'm as Donald Trump. Gavin's an astronaut. And we're talking about an international conflict, like in a serious manner.
Yeah.
I get we have to, but this is also... we're also like all in costume.
But when it comes down to it, like...
Oh...
I said it when we left Afghanistan and kind of just left them high and dry after we destabilized it because our nation building operation failed entirely.
Bruh.
I said, what was our responsibility to the innocent people in Afghanistan after we destroyed their lives? Yeah. What is our responsibility to Palestine after funding Israel and letting them take their land?
It's a great question. I don't know.
It's not so much about picking a side. There's a lot of innocents that are going to be have some bad results of what occurs.
Yeah, I agree.
Regardless. Whether land gets taken away from Israel, there's a lot of innocents that are going to be impacted from it, and there's a lot of nuance to that. But when I say free Palestine, I just simply mean, can we get to the point where Palestine can be respected and this may involve, as crazy as it sounds, because we funded Israel so much, and the national relations implications of this may involve, do we have a responsibility to build up the PLO? Because what I've said is free Palestine isn't enough, because if we just let them be, I don't know that the PLO is strong enough that Hamas doesn't become the government of Palestine. So we also have a responsibility, because also Israel helped fund Hamas. I think there's a moral responsibility. The PLO is a legitimate government that governs part of Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a responsibility to build them up into a stable government, and is there a benefit to that? I would say probably.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. That's a good question.
But just first and foremost, I just don't ever want to see innocent people being oppressed like they are in Palestine, and that's what the minimum is. There's so much more nuance that I don't have the answers to.
Yeah, I just want innocent. I just want there to be a ceasefire, and I want people in this country to stop acting like they know what they're talking about. That's what I would like.
Primarily, I'm just concerned with the innocents. We can attack Hamas; they're a terrorist organization. I don't know that the U.S. has to get involved.
I don't think we should put our own troops on.
We can support financially Israel attacking Hamas. When we talk about innocent civilians being injured, that's where I remove my support. And also, I don't know. Is it the PLO's problem to attack Hamas?
These are all things that I don't know.
I don't necessarily. I just don't want to see innocents hurt, and I don't want to see Palestine continuing to lose more land, and I don't want to see religious persecutions of Palestinians because they're not Israeli and not Jewish.
Yeah.
That's the priorities.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, and I would like to quickly, and I don't usually singularly call out one side too often, but I saw a thing on Instagram of some college kids that think they're doing something, holding a sign that said "Free Palestine is I'm if I'm remembering correctly, Free Palestine is a queer liberation issue and a feminist issue. That is absolutely hysterical to me. That's just funny. Because first of all, if you're a part of the LGBTQ community, they're going to throw you off a roof. You know who's actually really progressive in terms of LGBTQ plus stuff? Israel.
Are they really?
Actually, that's what I heard. I've heard that they're very open about that stuff. And also, if you're trying to support, you know what else is going to happen over there in Palestine is they're also going to treat women. They don't treat women green. I mean, it's
I don't think
the
so.
Middle East.
And I think probably by American standards, they're probably both not great. By American standards.
So I'm like, why are we tying it all together? I've actually realized something recently. The left doesn't do conspiracy theories. They don't. I'm sure they have a few, but the political right has. Their conspiracy culture there's a large overlap on the political right with conspiracy culture, right? The majority of what you're going to see is coming from right-leaning individuals.
What the left does is the left. I don't like to use. It's not identity politics necessarily.
No, but the left ties all of the social movements together into one thing, acting like they all have the same goal.
But what I don't understand is why you can't just say it's a basic human rights issue.
You can say, now if they said that, that's fine. But when you got to be like, Free Palestine is a queer liberation issue, and it's a feminist issue, and it's this issue, it's like, all three of those things have completely separate goals. First of all, you're looking at a part of the world that treats all those people horribly.
I mean, that's just the Middle East. The only argument I would have is maybe there is an instance where I don't know the PLO's official stances. I read their left-wing government. Is if you can get a legitimately established government for the PLO, is it better? I would say more than likely, because I do think Hamas is a terrorist organization. Mm-hmm. Is it better for those living in the Gaza Strip? In those regards. So maybe it is an issue for that, but for me, I just think you can just honestly say I believe people have rights, and I believe these people's rights have been infringed on.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. That's probably where you could leave it. And I feel like that's probably just where we should be at in this country, instead of fighting each other and screaming at each other over a conflict that's older than this country is, and that, I'm like, what's the intent? Here's the thing. Whenever I see these protests for Israel or for Palestine, my first question is, what is the intent? Like, what are you actually trying to accomplish? Because a lot of these protests, I don't see donation links being put up. I don't see this whole thing of like, let's raise money and send it over there as like a humanitarian perspective. Clearly those protests aren't like reaching out to people that are in the middle trying to educate. Uh-oh.
It should be fine.
Okay, the skies have opened up, and now there's a lot of sunlight in here. I hope the camera doesn't. But that's just where I get stuck up on this. That's where I get frustrated, because my thing is like, what is the current dialogue we're having in this country over this issue? What are we getting out of this? Like, where does it put us at the end of the day?
And I think some of it is people, like I talked about, that the right likes to fight with the fringe, not fringe. I hate fringe because fringe sounds negative, and I don't even think the left gets that extreme, regardless of aside from violence.
Okay, we'll agree to
compared to the right.
We'll agree to disagree there, but
because so I think even when you go into the what? I already saw that. Buc-ee's is wild.
Oh my god! I have a solution. The whole thing is just Buc-ee's.
Palestine and Israel merge into Buc-ee's.
I genuinely think that was a Tim Dillon bit. I'm not gonna go into it. It was a little out there, but he was like,
when it comes to fringe left, I think most of it can still be defended as somewhat arguing for individuals having certain rights. It might be overcorrection at times, okay, but I think it's more well-intentioned than the fringe right that becomes hateful to specific groups.
Do you think? Okay, here's a question: do you see the left? Do you think the left is exempt in that area of being hateful?
I don't think that they are incapable of being hateful. I just don't see them specifically targeting a group with their hate. Yeah, you can go with political parties. You can.
Well, no, I'm not even saying political parties. I'm saying
you can say they target political parties. So, like, because the group that anyone's going to say the left is too critical of is white men, but being a white man on the left, I've not run into any issues on that.
I do kind of think that feminism, like in some ways, has just turned into bullying men in the same way that the red pill community has turned into just bullying women. I see those two as functionally the exact same thing.
And that's where it comes down to it. I think that's where you're seeing an amplified version of feminism, because you're seeing what people got mad at on the internet. Yeah, there's ridiculous women who call themselves feminists. I haven't actually encountered a problem with any of them in my, like any of that in my day-to-day life. And
Okay, here's my question: have you run into a white supremacist in your day-to-day life? Like a truly hateful, like full-on white supremacist?
I have heard a lot of crazy things. Yeah. No, I've actually had at work, like, a person apologized to me one time for having to deal with someone who was not white and did not speak great English, and he said, "I can't believe that you have to deal with those people." I've heard, like,
That's not great.
I've heard relatively hateful remarks in real life about people of races that are not white. I've heard really bad remarks that I would go into probably in private, because I don't want to call out companies. Working.
Yeah, they all watch the show. You're gonna get all of our sponsors removed. You're gonna get all of our viewership.
I don't like. Well, no, but from
take it easy.
From a career standpoint, calling out specific companies I have heard working like venue security and live events. I have heard a lot of men say things I didn't think men actually said.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm sure that there are those people exist. I'm sure. I just never. And to be fair, I've never really run into too many of either one in real life.
That's
like very few.
I've run into a lot more people who are hateful towards women and hateful towards minorities. I mean, it's still not a large percentage of who I meet. It's not a large percentage of who I meet. But if I'm being realistic,
do you think? Now, here's a question: do you think because you're on the left, even when you do hear maybe some comments made about white men, this and the other thing, do you think that you just kind of brush past it and it kind of just goes water under the bridge because you maybe think that the intention behind it is good?
So there's like jokes. So I had a friend give me.
I don't count jokes though.
I've had a friend give me her stuff, and like, because women, a lot of their clothes don't have pockets, and she'd use my pockets and tell me that's all men are good for. Like,
well, that's funny. Like, that's a joke. Like, I actually think that's funny. Like, all the because that's.
I don't think I've directly heard a lot of things that directly target. Like, there will be times where a man does something gross, like legitimately gross, like the way they talk to women or something.
Yeah.
They'll make an offhand statement about men, and it's like, I don't think that.
I think I'm wiping off the makeup slowly. It's touching my face. I'm dying. It's 1,000 degrees in here, guys.
If I'm not participating in the behavior they're knocking, I just don't bother. Why am I? They're not talking about me. Like, even if they.
Interesting. Why do you think that?
Why? Well, they're not going to talk about it. They're not going to knock the behavior in front of me and make an offhanded remark about men's behavior. I'm not going to go into detail about which men or what behavior.
Okay.
But they're not going to do it in front of me if they're uncomfortable with. For example, I've heard of women say they didn't want to be alone in a room with a specific man, and then have me go help them alone in a room with something. Like, I'm not in the group that they're talking about when they have these problems.
Sure.
And I think sometimes, the problem that I guess I could argue is relatable and fair that a lot of white men have is that we broadly say that it's wrong to generalize, oh, women think this way or women do this way or do things this way or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And
like, generalizations aren't good.
They do still hear those generalizations by white men or about white men. And I think it's bad political messaging if you're a politician or making a public statement.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's bad social messaging?
It might
for a
create.
social movement to do that?
I would put that in, I think social movements are inherently political. So I think if it's a public movement, you might be alienating a base that you could win over a lot easier without that messaging. But I don't think any of it is with malice or hate the way some of the fringe right statements, even just what Kanye would say sometimes, like it was with malice. I don't think it's always with malice as much as it's with emotion. And I would
What about after Roe v. Wade?
with emotion.
I saw plenty of but I saw plenty of completely unwarranted political attacks.
And
Like I saw somebody compare the Republican Party to the Taliban the day that Roe v. Wade got overturned.
well, that's not new. Is it the newsroom with Jeff Daniels?
No, it was some person on social media.
But no,
It was a
no,
Hyde Park student.
No, I'm talking about the show. When you look at it, like the newsroom is a.
Show?
I think it's called The Newsroom.
Oh.
It's it's on HBO. Jeff Daniels did it. He was a news anchor. It's an older show. He called the Republican Party the American Taliban in that show, like damn near forever ago. Because is it extreme? Yes. Is it
Inaccurate? Yeah.
Is it still pointing out that the Republican Party does disproportionately oppress women, and I think that's acceptable because in our political climate.
Here's a question. Would you consider the fact that that's a blind spot for you?
Consider the fact that it's no. So I'm not saying it's acceptable broadly. I'm saying it's acceptable in our political climate because I'm a big defender of do what the other party's doing. And if Republicans are going to call Democrats communists, I'm going to call them the Taliban or whatever I've got to call them.
That's not nearly the same thing.
It is to some people. If we look at older people.
Okay, sure, but communism, you can make the argument that communism at least has good intentions behind it.
And I do make that argument.
And you make it but the Taliban doesn't have good intentions behind it.
But to old people, they're not going to see the argument that if I tell an 80-year-old that communism
well, sure, if they
has
grew up in a different world, but I'm saying like that doesn't seem to be acceptable to me to compare the Republican Party with the Taliban.
But the Republican Party calling Democrats communists, to me,
agree, and I've said that on the show that it's ridiculous. You can't call them all socialists.
It's the same target as because there are some Cuban Americans. We see it in Florida. They're a great demographic to show how negative of a connotation that is. They're making a negative connotation that their party will hear to their base, and that's what calling the Republican Party there are a million reasons that making these connotations could create a bad social scenario.
Yeah, I don't think it leaves anybody better off doing it. I think it's hurting everyone.
And I think it's bad politics, but I also believe that if one side's going to play, I don't believe the Michelle Obama "they go low, we go high" always works. I think sometimes they go low and you have to
go lower.
Not lower, but you have to go low back sometimes.
I'll disagree with you on that one.
It's do the ends justify the means thing, and sometimes if I believe in the political cause,
here's my question for you.
The ends justify the means for me.
Here's my question for you. Does labeling the Republican Party as the American Taliban get you any closer to the abortion laws being passed that you want to get passed?
If it rallies people to my cause, it might. If it rallies voters to my cause, it might.
Okay. But has that ever happened?
I don't know, because the abortion law just passed recently, and we did okay, and Democrats did okay.
I'm saying if you're saying this whole comparison Republican American Taliban has been going on for years, where's the results? Are we better off? That's my question to you. Are we better off by doing any of it?
I would say that the question doesn't present me with the option that time makes things more difficult. And I guess the argument would be, yes, it's creating further division between the parties.
Mm-hmm.
But I've kind of accepted that division is hard, almost irreparable in the current state of. Specifically, I feel the Republican Party doesn't always have principles in their stance, and sometimes their stance is, well, it's the opposite of what the Democrats say. What's hilarious is the one thing both parties can almost unanimously agree on is support for Israel, and it's about one of the only things that I don't agree with either party on. Like there's a lot of times where I feel like politics now has become, and I think the Republican voters have, but I'd still like to think a large portion of Democratic voters, especially within Gen Z, want to hear, and I think that's a pattern with Gen Z as a whole. They want to hear why we're doing something.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think a lot of the Republican base right now is very subject to being the contrarian today. Like they're voting out of a place of stubbornness and being a contrarian sometimes.
Who, Gen Z?
No, certain Republican voters, specifically the Trump base, feels that way. The strong Trump base.
Okay, but then here's my counterargument to that. What's up with people voting for, I think the 2020 election is a complete crumbling of that argument. People voted for Biden because he wasn't Trump. That's why Biden won.
Yeah.
Because we were tired of Trump. So yes, maybe Republicans do that, but Democrats do that too. That's how Biden got elected.
But I don't think that it's done on policy. I don't think being the contrarian rationalizes Democratic policy. I feel like Democratic policy can stand on its own a lot of times.
Okay, I'd say that Republican policy could stand on its own too.
All of it?
No, but all of Democrat policy can't either.
I think there's an arguable benefit to most of the Democratic policy I've read. For example,
Democratic policy to lower math standards in California so that people of color can get better scores, and as a result, the math standards in California have plummeted.
I didn't catch that one.
That doesn't seem like a sensible policy to me, to lower the standards instead of just making better education, because that's what California did.
And that plays into, like, that's where we run in. You run into a problem with what's going to subject you to problems with the voter base, and this is what I always say in America: is our uneducated voter base kills us.
I agree. No, that we actually agree.
Because I think what you could argue is from a playing politics and not playing what's right standpoint. Why is funding education taboo in this country?
I don't know.
It is.
You're right, and that's a damn good question.
So from a political standpoint, would there have been more blowback if he just increased the funding of education?
Whoever did it probably Newsom.
I would assume Newsom, but I don't know how recent this is.
This is like relatively. I mean, like from what I understand, the sort of results of this policy are starting to come back now, and the standards are just like through the floor.
Was it done to avoid political blowback? Now, I don't think that's a hugely great defense as an individual, because personally, I think I would always side with my gut before siding with re-election. But then you also go into back my argument, and this is what I always worry about doing to myself. Doing things because I convince myself. So I made the argument one time that I thought Lindsey Graham actually was convinced he was going to make good change when he started his political career. But I think what it comes down to, because if you look at just old videos of Lindsey Graham talking about Joe Biden, they were very different in how politicians interacted when they were younger. I think these older politicians got jaded to constantly doing things because they convinced themselves the ends justified the means.
Mm-hmm.
And like, and I even think realistically, if I was doing something in office, you could convince me to do something for the sake of re-election, because I believed so many of my other bills and things I was going to try and get done would do more good than that would do harm. And you run into this so as much as I'll vilify politicians and make them, I want to like villainize them and for the things they do badly, there's this very human aspect. If I think something's going to play better with the voters, is it worth staying worth doing it to keep me in politics? Because, and that's what I can say. Is that what Fetterman's doing with Israel? Because, like I said, it's a pretty 50-50 split among Democrats supporting Israel and largely popular.
Is there a demographic breakdown with that? Like,
there's a whole Pew Research poll with Black, white, Hispanic, Democrat, Republican.
Young, old? I'm saying, like, are a lot of younger Democrat, like younger progressives supporting Israel? Older ones are supporting. No, I'm sorry. Younger progressives supporting Palestine. Older ones supporting Israel.
Younger progressives are more likely to be in support of Palestine or indifferent to it entirely.
Gotcha. That's interesting.
Then the older you are, the more likely you are to support Israel. So like
Gotcha.
it becomes that thing where does this, with education being so taboo, spending on it for some reason other than maybe our finite money that we perceive.
Yeah, that we claim to have this like limited amount of resources.
That we always act like we're spending too much, but always increase the military budget. Like this falsehood that is our resources are so limited, and asking where the money's going to come from. Like, did that impact the decision? Did the voters, how the voters would feel about spending more on education impact the decision? I mean, we even get into that all the time. The argument of whether or not we should be able to bus students to the better schools or just fund those schools. And for some reason, Republicans don't side with the argument that we could just give better funding to schools that are performing poorly because maybe they just need that extra money.
Well, I do also think that Republicans get caught up in this weird idea that the free market is still like the free market and that it's going to like dictate itself and that you can just put the right incentives in place and the whole thing will sort of correct itself. Which I'm a capitalist, and I still don't think that that's.
I mean, like,
I don't think that that's reasonable. I think that at this point the market's probably been so heavily manipulated that you probably do need government. And I don't know, maybe I don't want to even say that like that definitively, but it seems like it's possible that the market's been so manipulated that by at this point you need government to step in to fix some of it.
That's. I think it gets into a gray area with. So, like, because I'm on, for example, the minimum wage being lowered is inherently bad for the lower than it could be is inherently bad for the taxpayer because you have many people making sub-poverty wages that are now eligible for government benefits, that they're getting money from the government that their employer could be paying them in a higher minimum wage. I mean, $15 an hour, I don't even remember if that keeps you over the poverty line anymore.
No, it probably doesn't.
I'm
curious about what that is. Like, if the government raises minimum wage, can't the companies just raise their prices endlessly?
I mean, I've always argued that you can end inflation.
Anyway.
I've argued you could end inflation simply by saying that the minimum wage and will increase by
the same percentage
by
of
the
prices.
Inflation, at least by the percentage of inflation, if not inflation plus 2%. Can you imagine how quickly inflation? Because there would be no benefit. I always explain inflation as if I told you I wanted to order a pizza and you go, okay, I'm gonna eat half the pizza, and me and Gavin have to split the last half. I go, okay, I'm gonna order 2 pizzas so there's enough for us. And you go, well, I need to eat more pizza now because there's more. It's silly, really.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't. done the deep dive on inflation because it's not interesting to me.
Like, there's an argument for inflation that exists internationally, like gas prices, because we're not energy independent.
Sure.
But largely speaking,
This is gonna be so funny to watch back. By the way, us in this costume after like talking about.
it got so
Like,
serious.
yeah, it did get very serious very fast, didn't it?
I just think inflation is such a false argument I think inflation's manipulated by the companies for their political interests.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, at that part I do agree with you on. Like the inflation argument gets a little ridiculous.
If you look at what inflation would actually be to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, it was like pennies on every McDonald's item would pay for their wages increasing. Like what would actually pay for the wages and them insisting they want to make up the full everything fully is it's an excuse companies use.
Yeah, I'm sure. I want to get back to this other thing though, because we were sort of having a discussion about like we were discussing political violence there for a little bit. I wanted to get back to that.
Yeah.
Because I do think like I've been saying recently that the reason why the political right seems so uniquely awful is because they have no cultural power yet. I predict that they will in the next 10 to 15 years because conservatism is now the counterculture movement. Especially
so weird.
Especially among young men, conservatism is the counterculture movement. So who knows? In 10 to 15 years, conservatism may have cultural power. But right now, the political right has no cultural power. And the political left has a lot of the like cultural / institutional power. So my thought has always been, yeah, the political left doesn't really need... The political right is exercising all of their agendas in government. And that's why it looks really scummy. And a lot of times it is scummy, but that's why it looks like that. The left doesn't need to because the left can implement their agendas in institutions like academia and in corporations.
And it's tricky because there's also that argument that... And there are people who have said the more educated they became, the further left they were. Like, there is, like, this realistic argument that... There's also studies that the more empathetic you are, the further left you tend to be. There's actually studies that, like, the parts of brains that react to different imagery... I did see that as well. Can indicate
Yeah.
somebody's political stand. Like, it's a...
But I've also heard that those are, like, easily manipulated when you put people in the right groups.
It's a strongly psychological thing.
Well, that's all our political beliefs are. Yeah, a lot of them are strongly psychologically correlated.
But when it comes down to it, I think there's just this... And it goes into the contrarian, it goes into the emotional, it goes into a lot of the things we've talked about in terms of people, the feeling alienated because the language being used that may make them feel like they're being targeted, like people specifying straight white male when they talk.
Yeah.
It can go... I think it does go into emotional intelligence and how you process that kind of stuff being said. Just like how we've probably disagreed a lot today, and then we might just go out to lunch after.
Yeah, we are. That's how it should be.
And forget how...
That's how it should be.
Because nothing we said, I think, nothing said today goes into a point where we fundamentally, morally disagree on...
I mean, this is maybe the closest that we're getting right here with the political violence between parties kind of thing.
But, like...
That's maybe the closest.
We've not disagreed on what's... And I think you can disagree on certain morals. But we've not disagreed on what's morally correct or even that things are fucked up. We've disagreed on some things.
Yeah, I mean, my main... And I have recently become more frustrated. Like, I've always been frustrated with the political right. Like, they always do goofy shit that drives me crazy. But the political left recently has been driving me particularly nuts with the whole Israel-Palestine thing. Like, enough with the silence is violence. Like, please, enough of that.
And I think that
enough of the stolen land stuff. Like, enough of this. Every single person on this earth is living on land that was stolen by somebody, and then by somebody again, probably.
Well, and I think it goes into the stolen land things, and there is an argument that, because I would say that the U.S. screwed up their duty to make things right with Native Americans.
Absolutely,
but we're far too. So I
will agree with you with.
I will agree. I think if we just look at it from a more educated standpoint now, you can try and encourage things to go right in Palestine and things to be made right properly. So I think that, yes, we're on stolen land, and most everyone is.
Everyone is.
But we have to just consider acknowledging the way we've screwed that up.
Sure, but then everybody's got to do it.
Everybody's
acknowledging.
Everybody screwed it up in the past, and I think we have to look at Palestine and go, listen, I don't think there's enough people in Israel and Palestine that either group needs more than half that land out there.
But what if they want to expand? What if they want to grow their populations?
Okay, well, who do we decide? How do we decide one's more important than?
I'm not saying from that perspective, but I'm just saying, like, why not give each of them as much land as we can possibly give them? In the ideal on paper situation, why wouldn't you give them?
Which realistically is and fairly would be half and half.
Sure, no, yeah, that would be.
But so
I guess again, I haven't done the issue. I don't really know.
I think some things that the left says that sounds half baked is more because the left is just trying to get the problem acknowledged sometimes, and I think there's a fair argument for really worrying about, because I'm going to be honest, a lot of times I go, there's a problem and I should be able to just look to the politicians to fix it and trust them. Like as a regular citizen, do I need to do more than say, Israel kind of stole that land, guys. Something should be done to make that right.
But realistically, there's not much more that you can do other than like calling your local representative.
And I did send emails out about my feelings on Palestine and that I felt like the government wasn't accurately representing me as the people I voted for.
Sure, and that's fair. But so here's my thing: is if that's what these Free Palestine protests were pushing for, if all of those signs said, call the local senator, call insert name and phone number. Obviously, all protests are legitimate. You have a right to protest whatever you want. But I'm saying I would like people to consider some intention behind this instead of just playing the moral high ground game and just saying that you're somehow morally better than me because you've gone to a Free Palestine protest.
I guess my argument to that would just be that emotions aren't always going to come with the most rational, thought out, productive.
And I don't think that we should lead with emotions. Really ever. I mean, sometimes you can. It's reasonable sometimes. And maybe I should take that back. I'm not going to say never. But I'm saying when it comes to a geopolitical conflict, it's maybe not the best idea to have your emotions be front and center.
Maybe, but that's why we're not the ones. Like, it would be completely different if Joe Biden went out there with his emotions on the Israel-Palestine conflict. But I think when it comes down to it, like, showing emotions how you've got to show emotions is just a healthy thing to do. And if some people, especially maybe people who are more tied to Palestine than
of course, and everything I've said today obviously excludes people that are Jewish or that are Israeli or people that are Palestinian that have a direct tie to the conflict. Obviously, none of what I've said today applies to those people, in terms of my criticism.
Like, in terms of protests, for example, Ireland supports Palestine almost fully because they feel very strongly about colonialism for obvious reasons.
Sure.
To me, if you just have a strong feeling on the matter, and it might be hard for you to grapple, if it's emotionally better for someone to voice those opinions and feel feel like they're making a difference, even if they're going about it all in a not the most productive way they could. I also don't feel like they should be targeted because it's like as attacked verbally because it's unproductive.
Well, I'm not saying go after these people, and like I should preface that. I'm not saying don't protest. I'm not saying attack the people that are protesting. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just curious as to like what are those protests ultimately going to accomplish?
I think there's a benefit in showing you're not the fringe on Twitter. You're real people that can show up in mass and present that you have a shared opinion.
Okay, and that's totally fine. But again, my question is where? Okay, sure. Okay, so you've proved that you can mobilize. Fine, fair enough. What is the end? When do the protests stop? What's the end goal for people in this country?
I think everyone has a different end goal. So just like my emails to my senators and representatives, I didn't expect them to change. Like, I didn't expect my one email to change John Fetterman's stance on Israel.
Of course.
But maybe it makes you feel better about your contribution. Maybe it shows that person you have an opinion. Maybe it just... maybe it just makes you feel heard. Like it.
I guess, and hey, that's fair.
There's
That's
just
fair.
like this inherently, and I think this is something we need to look at free speech as more. There's an inherently healthy aspect to it in the fact that people feel the need to feel heard and feel like they just got it out there. Like is it maybe a nothing? Yeah. Do I feel better? I sent my emails. Yeah,
Sure, and that's also totally fair. I just don't understand. I don't understand why we're fighting each other so heavily in this country over.
I don't understand why any two individuals can't get together and go, the Hamas attack was bad and Israel is committing war crimes. That should be. Those are both.
Yeah, and there does
factual statements.
There does seem to be people on the other side that are. No, not on the other side. There do seem to be people out there that don't want to admit that. That's my position. Is just like, guys, we're not exactly talking about. I mean, there's corruption everywhere in the world. So to act like either one of these groups of people are, and I'm talking about Hamas and Israel, obviously, like to act like either one of these two groups of people are like stainless in some way is,
and then
kind of hilarious. It's kind of funny.
That's when it comes down to like, are you just taking a stance to be the contrarian? Can you not just say that Israel bombing someone was bad? So I would say I do have that sociological view, however you want to phrase it, whatever social science this falls under, of did Israel push Hamas to this point from what we know about human reactions to things?
Yeah.
How predictable was it? I don't actually know. I don't study it.
Yeah, I don't know either.
So like there's that. That doesn't make. I'm not rationalizing it.
Of course. Yeah, we're also at 2 hours here, buddy. I think we gotta. You ready to wrap it?
We can wrap it.
Yeah, I mean, sorry. Conclude your thoughts. I mean, I agree. It's just, I get confused. I don't get confused by what's happening in the Middle East. I get confused by, because to me in this country, this is a situation where we should just you should be able to sit down with someone you disagree with and have a reasonable conversation like we just did.
Within reason, I'd look at you like you had three heads if you go, yeah, I fully support every bomb Israel has dropped.
No, I mean, like, that's crazy. I mean, like, I don't support any bombs that anybody's dropped.
I think that the U.S., with our warlike history and what we've done in the Middle East, a lot of people do approach it with, like, just this kind of, well, they're terrorists, they deserve it. Like, I think there's also a lot of people that haven't fully separated
Bless you.
the term Muslim from terrorist. like
yeah.
like it just. So I feel like that a lot of people just.
And I imagine a lot of those people got that experience from 9/11.
I feel like that's a problem we run into with it, where there are people who are fully defending Israel, and I do think simultaneously I don't know if anyone's fully defending Hamas, but I feel like there are people who would be deeply offended by me making the statement that there's probably a social sciences aspect and what we can look at from historical human interaction, that what Hamas did is something that is pretty consistent with human reaction to oppression. Not that it's a defensible action, but it's consistent with human history.
Oh, sure. I mean, yeah, like, again, maybe it's not,
but
in hindsight, it's not super surprising that they did what they did, but it's not.
But I
don't
think
there's any way to defend it.
That would, just even me arguing that it's not inconsistent with the way humans react to things, would be seen by someone who doesn't know me and doesn't want to hear what I have to say as me defending them.
Sure.
And that's where I think we reach our problem.
Every position now in this, the way we're treating this conflict in this country, every single position is a secret, sneaky, like, you know, if you pick the wrong side, then you're the villain, and if you don't pick a side at all, then you're a villain. So essentially what we should just be saying is, listen, just agree with me, otherwise I'm going to label you as a problem.
It's a tough problem, so I don't blame people who say, hey, I don't have the I do kind of. I feel like there are too many people living ignorant. I could see saying that I don't have time to learn about certain problems, but there are people who just don't say they don't have time to learn about politics, and like they'll say it about like a dumb, like I've had people who say that about gay marriage, and I'm like, you don't have to, like, you just have to say, yes, I support everyone's right to get married,
or I guess say no, like, but even then, like, okay. And you're saying, obviously, sorry, my mic was so far away from me whenever I was talking there. Obviously, you're saying, like, that doesn't apply to everybody. That's just some people.
There are people who literally won't take a stance on an issue perceived as political and just won't, like, they'll just dodge the question. I'm like, at some point, you're dodging civic responsibility to get, when it comes to defending a basic human right. It would be like being neutral on child labor. Like, should 9-year-olds be allowed to work? Well, I don't know. I haven't read all the information. There are some people who will give that answer no matter what you ask them.
Yeah, I don't. No. Oh gosh, we were about to open another can. Oh God. Do you think that those people? Do you think? Because I've always thought, like, with like apolitical people, like those people that don't really touch politics at all. I don't blame those people at all, by the way. I genuinely don't, because it's so messy and it's so fucked that I just feel like, yeah, I mean, it's probably better for your mental health to not engage with the topic. Do you think those people? Why do you think people feel that way? Do you think it's like people feeling so disenfranchised by the way things are being done that they just kind of drop it?
So I think there's people our age that, because of that's most of who I talk to, that when they give that response, they just genuinely don't care.
Sure.
Like, they'll just admit it doesn't impact their life.
Well, yeah, that, and like going back to like the mental health effect, like there's like always so much shit going on in the world at once, and it's just so hard, especially today. It's so hard to keep up with it all, and once you do, it's just like, how do you healthily like go through that?
Agreed. Yeah. That's my thought, is like, it's impossible for me to care about every single thing that's happening all at once.
And you don't have to, but like when, if I ask you, do you lean more left, right, moderate, and they'll be like, I don't. One time I called myself a leftist and someone didn't know what that meant.
Yeah, because leftist is still kind of like a fringe term. It's not really.
No, but like she couldn't even. She goes, "So are you more liberal or are you more conservative?" And I'm like,
first of all, liberal and leftist aren't even the same thing.
I'm like liberal, and I mean, I guess I'm more liberal, but I'm not a liberal. She goes, what do you mean? Like, there are people.
Yeah, some people don't get that there's also that's just
true.
yeah. I mean but that is also to an extent that is just a problem with ideologues. There's always a new label. There's always a new term, and they all mean slightly different things.
But and maybe this person was just dumb, but like to not be able. Context clues. I used the word left.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't even know what not a lot of people. I'm sure that people don't even know what liberal and conservative mean.
No, I don't.
I mean, I'm not even sure if I could give you like a super solid like word by word definition for. And I don't want to try, but like
I could try on liberal. I feel like conservative depends on who's saying the word at this point.
I would say the same thing with liberal then too, because
I
there's also
think-
progressive and there's also leftist.
So I think who's saying liberal, if it's coming from a person on the left, there's a pretty consistent. A leftist or socialist might use liberal with a negative connotation and use negative words referring to it.
Yeah.
But I think there's a relatively consistent understanding of what liberal viewpoints are on a from the stance of a politically educated person on the left. And like politicians in Congress could tell you what a liberal is. Do you think if I asked Matt Gaetz and Mitt Romney what it means to be a conservative, you'd get a answer that resembles the same thing?
I don't know. I would imagine that based on those two people, yeah, I could imagine. I could see you getting two very different answers, but I imagine there's some overlap.
I think liberal is more consistent because the left, and maybe this is one of our political downfalls when running for things, is willing to create factions within like liberal, socialist, leftist.
I mean, the right has that. The right has that same problem too. That's the problem.
But they all want to own the
Parties.
term conservative.
Well, yeah, they love the word conservative.
They
It
like
means
their
different.
word.
Also, like MAGA is one of the ones they use.
MAGA has come in as of late, but they all want to own the term conservative.
Yeah, they
at
like
the
owning
very
that.
least.
Yeah.
Democrats, I feel like at least give more consistent of what liberal means, because not all Democrats feel the need to own that their brand of being a Democrat is also liberalism.
Yeah, I actually don't even use liberal meaning somebody left of center anymore.
I don't know what liberal means to me anymore.
I-
I do. So, like, I would say a liberal is a capitalist.
Well, so I would say, here's what I've done, and I'm not saying that no one else has to do this, but I found that it's helpful to me, is that I've now reserved liberal for like liberal democracies, like liberal values, like things like capital L, like things the country was founded on. I use progressive as someone that is politically left of center, closer to the middle, and then a leftist is someone that is further left than a progressive.
And from an international politics standpoint, you are using liberal correctly. Liberal, and this is where I hate that Democrats are liberals and Republicans are conservative, because it used to be that there were those that fit that on both sides.
There used to be liberal.
There used to be so much more nuance.
Liberal Republicans and conservative Democrats. They used to be a thing. Now it's completely homogenous.
I think,
And I agree with you on that there too. Yeah.
because I think the parties would be much more interesting if you could have a conservative that is as pro-union as John Fetterman and still a conservative, but you have to fully subscribe to certain parts of the ideology to be be a conservative,
to be a part of the team. That's just ideologies everywhere.
But I think we're particularly at fault to it because we're in a two-party system.
Of course, absolutely, absolutely.
I mean, you saw it. The House Speaker vote was designed for two parties and didn't know what to do when we couldn't get a majority consensus. And I'm like,
Yep.
if it wasn't a two-party system, Hakeem Jeffries right now would be the Speaker of the House, because we would be using a plurality system to design that. So I will consistently say that I blame the two-party system for our division, our problems.
Social media has done a lot of damage too.
Because I think when you look at if we were running a multi-party system, you and I would not be in the same party.
No,
But
I would say not. No.
We get along well enough that we could probably negotiate and form a coalition to get things done.
Yeah, I think like more friend. I think you
The way they do in
need,
the UK.
You need more like if we were both elected politicians, as we are right now. I think we would genuinely be able to sit down and figure some things out.
And I also think me and you could put aside what the other person, like if I called the Republican Party the Taliban, I could look at you and you're like, you know that part was politics. Just let me. We could put that aside.
I would not be happy if you made that statement publicly, but it wouldn't be a reason for me to like throw our friendship away.
So, I guess what I'm saying is the way the Republican Party has now made their public words their private, like it's the same. It's like weird that you know who dislikes each other in the Republican Party, specifically the House of Representatives.
Well, I think Trump is responsible largely for that. Trump brought in or at least maybe he didn't. I don't think he created it, but Trump made the incentive to fight a lot more appealing.
And the Republicans and Democrats feud, I feel like, is a lot more real than it was when, just like Lindsey Graham had great things to say about Joe Biden when it came to their personal relationship.
Yeah.
And he would have beat him up on a debate stage in terms of debating a Democrat versus a Republican.
Yeah.
And I feel like
you should be allowed to do that. You should be allowed to.
We need to get a point where our politics can be ugly and I can pick you apart. And then we can go behind closed doors and know that we have a responsibility to get it done.
I think that's where we can. I think that's where we can. I think that's where we can wrap it. I think that's where we can be done. I think Cade has said enough. Get this liberal off my show. Get this leftist out of my podcast studio.